The servants informed him of his number that they had brought her. The master ordered her to be brought closer. As they say, every cloud has a silver lining. The servant said that when she approached His Majesty, she should kneel down and press her forehead to the floor. That's where her troubles began. Who knew that death would be involved? One day, 3 months ago, a plague broke out, and all people were forbidden to go outside. In the 21st century, they were forbidden to contact others. One day, she went out to the store for food and was hit by a car. It was the worst possible outcome that could have happened. From ignoring a text message advising people to stay indoors. People should never ignore emergency messages. The place where she first opened her eyes when she thought she was dead. She found herself inside the well and did not understand at all how she could have gotten stuck there. She immediately began asking for someone to help her, but there is no one. So she thought about how remote she is, that no one can hear her. It seems like there is no one here except her. And then she saw the light in front of her was a crowd of strange people. She was very scared and started screaming. People didn't understand where she was from and thought she was a spy. That's how she got out of the well. People noticed that he couldn't even speak normally. The girl did not understand what it was because she was not in her own body. She thought that she was sleeping, and everyone thought that she was crazy because she hit herself. The man asked if she remembered how she got into the well, or if she remembered her name. And I made sure that this is not what she thinks about people from the village in such strange clothes. Even though she is hearing this language for the first time, she can understand everything correctly. Perhaps God took pity on her and gave her a chance. Then she decided to give herself a cool name for her new life, and said that her name was Ellen Fiella Ruzi de Morcia Irina. She didn't even know what name could be more suitable for this fantasy world. The man thought she had hit her head. That's how she became Liffey. The villagers said that an evil man hit her on the head and threw her into a well. Or there is another option that she was first thrown into the well and then she hit her head. But all hypotheses lead to the fact that she damaged her head because she only remembers her name. She was very happy that she had started a new life, but she had nothing to do in the village. But one day she came across a very interesting story. They say that His Majesty Emperor Persilian often sees the princess. It seems he is going to arrange a wedding for himself. The other man thought he was talking about Princess Regina when she heard their name. She immediately began asking to be told about it too. These two are characters from her favorite novel, The Elegant but Stubborn Princess Cyril von Regina, and Persilian Eckhart is known as a bloody tyrant, a veteran emperor who was kind and gentle toward the assimilation of a probable woman. These two were truly a fantastic couple, made by heaven itself, and to be precise, they were a fantastic couple only in her imagination. To begin with, Persilian X was my main character, and not even a secondary character. The girl really wanted them to love each other. She just liked this couple and their storyline. She is very glad that it got into her favorite novel. Since she knows what she can do, now she asks them all to line up. If they want to hear a prediction, she can help them. In this way, she can earn money. She can predict the future because she knows what the book was about. Because she remembered all the events in the book, she became a fortune teller. She sees her rich future because money is the best thing that can be. That's how rumors about the fortune teller Liffey spread very quickly. And before she conquered the entire empire, she was dragged to the emperor. The emperor ordered her to state her name. The girl said that she was Ellen Fiella Ruz de Morcia, Irina Otbor, Margarita. And then she said that she was just Liffey, and on the street, a fortune teller. So the emperor asked if she knew what she was guilty of. The girl began to say that she would never again predict anything about the imperial family and about the princess. But without these three, she will have nothing to predict. Now is not the time to think about it. Her life is at stake. She seems to have a wealth of information. The girl heard a child's voice and a half voice that there was someone else there besides the emperor and the knights. She raised her head and said that she knew quite a lot of things. She did not understand what was happening. And after that, a curtain was opened in front of her. This noble golden hair and beautiful bright red, like rose petals, eyes drowning in blood. A tyrant who is tragically known throughout the continent by the name of Persilion de Eckhart. She didn't understand why she was so small. The boy ordered her to tell him when he could return to his normal state. She remembers that in the second part of the novel, the emperor disappeared somewhere. Now she understands why he disappeared. She thought that it happened because of this, that he was not the main character and was just an unimportant character. She didn't understand at all how he could turn into a child. The emperor noted that it seemed she didn't know, so he ordered her to be killed. The girl shouted that it was not necessary because she would immediately find out how to get rid of his curse, and asked to give her a little time. He showed 5 with his hand, and she thought, is that 5 weeks or 5 days? Well, when he removed one finger, she realized that it was 5 seconds, and asked him to stop. The girl didn't understand what to do because she hadn't even earned any money and couldn't die like that. The girl shouted that he should be with her, and the emperor understood me immediately. Now she can't see where the spell came from, but she will find out what kind of curse it is. All she could find out was that if they were together, she could help. He didn't understand at all how she knew about the curse. It seemed she had guessed right and got away with it. She told His Majesty that he had a huge number of people who did not like him. The servant noticed that the aristocrats had been acting strangely lately. Just a few minutes ago, she thought that this knight was a terrible person, but now she respected him. Liffey said that she must stay with him until the curse is lifted, and she doesn't know how long it will take, but he must keep her alive. The more complex the problem that needs to be solved, the more carefully she treats it. She hoped that in this way, he would not kill her. But the emperor believed that she had made this up to save her life, and asked how she could prove the truth of her words. She assumed he had approached her because everyone was talking about the fortune teller, and he had a very unusual situation. If he had any illness, they would have found it by now. Besides, the priests can't help either. It seems he turned to her for help because he couldn't solve his problem. Just looking at those eyes, even as a child, he looks very stern. She didn't even know if she could say that he believed her. Looking at this reaction, she needed to consolidate her success quickly, so she said that she actually knew what happened to him with Princess Regina a month ago. Before the princess boarded the ship, he gave her a bracelet with a red flower. He did it to everyone, and the princess gave him cufflinks. She knew this before, but she didn't talk about it on purpose because she didn't want to talk about his personal life in front of everyone. It was a very secret meeting between Emperor Persilion and Princess Cyril. Only one knight accompanying him knew that the emperor had changed his clothes and left the castle. However, no one could hear the conversation itself, but the cufflinks were undoubtedly very valuable to Persilion. It's all because he's afraid to use them, so they don't break. She remembers it clearly because it was her favorite part. The princess accepted his bracelet and said that the flower reminded her of the color of his eyes, and she also wanted to say something else, but the emperor said that this was enough. Liffey thought he was being shy, and thought she didn't know about the part where he shouted for the princess to marry him. It was their last scene together, who would have thought, because later it would turn into this. Persilion noted that she described the event in great detail. The girl said that, in fact, all her predictions come true. It was just a clear picture that appeared in her head, and then she noticed that he smiled. This means that he probably won't kill her, otherwise he wouldn't be smiling at her. He said, straw. The girl immediately said that his faithful straw would be with him. But he didn't understand what straw was. He said he would leave the language then, and she wanted her to tell him when he could return to his body and what she saw about it. She wasn't scared at all, and said that she didn't know yet. Persilion said that if it took too long, her future would be bleak. Fortunately, she survived. She thought she would die as soon as she entered your imperial palace, but she was fine. The knight said that he was the only one who knew about the current state of His Majesty, and she was the second person. The girl understood everything, and she was given a room next to the emperor, where Millard explained the whole situation to her in detail. He said that Emperor Persilian had been in this condition for 10 days already, and that all the doctors and priests had come, but no one could help him. But before anyone came to see the emperor, they drank a medicine that erased their memory for 2 hours. There were wizards in the Eckhart Empire, but they did not enter the imperial palace. They were sentenced to death for entering the imperial palace. The ban was not related to the fact that the medicine for memory loss does not work on wizards. In fact, the situation is more complicated. Firstly, Persilian knew how to use magic. He was called the best wizard in the empire, so he could not allow other wizards to treat him. Besides, all the wizards lived in a magic tower, and the tower itself belongs to Archduchess Dipka. Perhaps the Archduchess is behind this situation. That is why the emperor turns to the tower for a bit. When His Majesty became like this, he could no longer use magic, and it was as if he had returned to his 4-year-old age, when he still did not know how to use magic. The girl asked when magic awakened in him, and he answered that it was around 9 years old, and then, if 5 years passed, it would appear again. Liffey said that the same thing would not happen, because she was here to prevent this terrible tragedy. The most suspicious are the tower and Archduchess Dipka. However, even after 10 days have passed, they are not visible. Perhaps they simply do not know when the curse was supposed to manifest. The government is trying to solve all the issues, but the sudden cancellation of all official events has caused mistrust among the nobility. Besides, they haven't let her speak out loud for 10 days, which she's also already starting to blab about, as she already knows. And His Majesty has a lot of enemies. She realized that it was all because of this that the procedure for accession to the throne was violated. Persilian ascended to the throne by killing 4 brothers and sisters. After the former emperor was left alone with Persilian, he suddenly began bleeding and died of cardiac arrest. A throne soaked in blood. This is how Emperor Persilian was described. His Majesty said that there must be some clue in the palace. It seems that this curse was made recently. Perhaps there is something hidden in the palace that enhances the effect of the curse. The girl promised to try to find such a thing. He believed that she might have already noticed something. Liffey said she can't see anything yet. She can't even see within a meter. She didn't understand how this could happen. The knight said that to begin with, they decided to announce to everyone that His Majesty had taken a vacation, during which time she should find a way to get him back. The girl asked how the place became like this. The knight said that no one had supported it for some time. Liffey didn't understand why, because this place was very beautiful. It was once the emperor's garden. It is clear that she cannot discuss the emperor in front of the man who is accused of his death. The girl asked what happened, and the emperor said that he just wanted to see what was under the pot. Liffey didn't understand why it had to be broken. Persilian noted that it was clear that it had already been looked through. If they don't do this, they will waste even more time. The girl understood everything and said that she would help him. But the emperor said that it was his job, and she should look for things with her abilities. Liffey said she would just mind her own business. But suddenly she heard someone coming, so she immediately rushed towards the emperor. The knight asked who was there, and who dared to come here without His Majesty's permission. The woman said that she was walking through the palace and suddenly heard a loud sound, and it seemed like they were going to destroy Philip's greenhouse. The girl realized that this was an archduchess. Only one person in the empire can currently hold this title. With this man comes the cousin of the previous emperor, Dipke von Didius. The man did not understand how it was possible to do such a thing to the greenhouse, this great treasure of the imperial family. They must immediately hold a meeting of the nobles and officially express their dissatisfaction to the emperor. The lady noticed that you emperors have so much to do, and he doesn't even go out. It seems he is very tired. He even decided to take a vacation. She was about to leave. She suddenly heard this sound. Someone decided to destroy this greenhouse, and she doesn't even know who to turn to about this issue. The woman asked if the girl could answer this question, after which she wanted to know her name. The girl said that she could be called simply Liffey. It seems that this child broke a flower pot, so she wants the girl to let her talk to him. Liffey started to say that he was just a child. and it would be better to scold her. The Archduchess said that she would really answer for this. She asked what they had done in her younger brother's greenhouse. The Count remarked that she was the fortune teller. The lady was surprised and asked again. Lately, everyone is talking about her. She predicts people's futures right on the street. The Archduchess asked what this fortune teller was doing in the Emperor's palace. Besides, she doesn't understand why this woman would transform a child behind her back. Liffey tried to say something, but Persilian himself left, thereby greatly surprising the Archduchess. After this, he rushed to hug the lady and said that this man frightened him. The girl didn't understand what was happening. Fortunately, it seems that the Archduchess didn't recognize Persilian, but she doesn't understand what to do. The Count noticed that this boy looked very much like the Emperor. After that, the lady also thought about it. It is different in that it is very beautiful, and they really do look alike. Now she is sure that the Archduchess did not recognize little Persilian. The Count continued to say that they were quite frankly similar to the Emperor. The girl said that he was actually the Emperor's child. The Archduchess was quite freckled, which could be said about the Emperor. The Count thought for a moment and said that His Majesty had not even had a wedding. So the woman said it was an illegitimate child. They couldn't believe it. The Archduchess asked if this was really the Emperor's child, that is, His Majesty's. That's exactly how it was. She's here to serve this child. The lady said that, as far as she knew, the Emperor had not met with anyone. Maybe it had something to do with the vacation. The girl also added that his mother had died. The girl understood that the Emperor would be angry if she left her alive, so she decided to kill her. They believed that he had suddenly stopped giving receptions because he had a son, and at the same time, his beloved died, and he took a vacation in order to visit her grave. The girl said that everything was exactly like that, but they didn't understand what this child was doing here. Liffey told him that he would be raised here. The girl did not understand why she continued to stutter, because in this way, she can catch her in a lie. Mrs. Polina that she is raising this child. She came across me, after which she took him in her arms. She asked him to sit quietly, and then she said that he was a great guy. The Archduchess said that this child that is a prince, and she wants to know his name. The girl almost said his name was Persilian, but then said he was Perry. This is His Majesty Perry. The Archduchess bowed and said that she would come to meet him next time, and she told him to remember that he would not be able to survive in this place. But if he is strong, all this will change. The lady realized that he seemed to like the name Perry. Liffey winked at the knight and thought she was doing a good job. The knight asked if she understood what she had just done. The Emperor turned to her and asked if this was the scene from the prophecy she had seen. The girl was very scared and then decided to say that this was exactly how it was. She was very happy that he solved the problem for her, so she noticed him smiling. The Emperor said that he seemed to see a scene where someone cut her neck. It seemed that he could predict, too. But still, the boy said that he wanted to see what future awaited her. Viscount Jorzer said that the Archduchess had already seen the prince. According to the Count, they had met in the Emperor's garden. The man was in complete shock and asked if this was a place where His Majesty had completely banned access. They thought that the fact that His Majesty allowed the prince to go there showed that he was giving him a lot of power. Now the palace is growing day by day, and while the Emperor was absent, the nobles were busy with this. But now it is unclear where the prince appears from. It seems like a very good opportunity. They said that Prince Perry lived outside the imperial palace, so he is a very naive person. Then he just needs to be near this child. The entire Emperor left all powers to the prince. This means that the child from his beloved woman will be the main heir. Despite the fact that he is a cruel tyrant who imagines a knife to the neck of his assistants, he still knows how to love. He could not miss such a wonderful opportunity to lead an empire, so he asked what modern children like most. Prince Perry has been living outside the imperial palace all this time. Perhaps he likes unusual things, but this should interest any child. The Viscount was delighted. 5 days later, the palace. The Viscount came and said that he brought a gift for the prince, but the Emperor grabbed it and threw it at the wall. Liffey approached the Viscount and asked if he knew how many such gifts His Majesty the Prince received every day. He was already tired of it. That's exactly it. So next time he should bring a rattle that will be decorated with pink diamonds. The Viscount began to say that it was very expensive, but the woman repeated once again that she had said that a pink diamond was needed. The man had no idea how he could save up for this pink diamond. The emperor asked if this meant that they would bring him toys and she money. Liffey didn't understand what he was talking about. She was only showing his true level. Besides, this way, he can easily get rid of some nobles. Persilian sighed and told her to forget, and the girl was glad because he was not angry. It seems he was just tired of these events. When she came up with a story about the prince, the emperor became very angry with her. He said he was sending her signals, telling her to call him little brother. However, she did not understand how she could say that they were related because they were completely different. He was too sweet, so he decided to take his anger out on her for now. To her surprise, everything began to improve, and no one was surprised by the sudden appearance of the prince. The maid did not understand how they could be so different in the form of a very cute child. Because the prince looked very much like the emperor, everyone trusted him, as it was good that they did not know what the emperor looked like as a child. In addition, thanks to this, because she said that the prince missed his father very much, he was allowed to spend the night in the emperor's room, and now he no longer needs to hide from everyone in the castle. The emperor thought that she needed to sew her mouth shut. However, many nobles still came to the emperor in the mornings. Up until this point, everything was fine, but people were whispering and saying that the prince had a sad fate. He was born thanks to the relationship between his mother and the emperor. Well, when it turned out that the son of a tyrant emperor, his mother was worried that someone might take advantage of this. That's why she hid him away from everyone and the palace. Then the fortune teller Liffey, who was always with them, witnessed her mother's death. Then Liffey couldn't take it anymore and decided that she would bring him to the palace. By the way, this story was not invented by her, but by various servants and nobles. When the count spoke to her, he thought that it was hard for her to remember this. By her silence, she simply encouraged them to believe this. Liffey turned to His Majesty and said that now he did not need to hide because it had become more comfortable for him. He said that thanks to her, he now has a son. Besides, he had a lover because of whom he couldn't keep an eye on her. He was still so cute, she couldn't believe it was all because of Princess Regina. The prince did not understand why she remembered this now, but the girl believed that he himself did not know. Persilian said that he and Cyril had similar childhoods, and he felt that they were alike, so he treated her very well. Perhaps after her return, she would be able to help him as her knowledge and skills were indispensable in difficult situations. The emperor, however, had made it clear that he wished that this child not be involved in matters requiring adult involvement. At first, she was shocked to hear that she was called a child, but after thinking about it, she came to the conclusion that it was a cute nickname that only emphasized their connection. Despite her surprise, she was sure that her views on their relationship were absolutely correct. The emperor seemed to think that she was trying to imply that without the princess's return, she would not be able to solve his problem. This thought troubled him, as time was of the essence. She firmly insisted that it was impossible, but the emperor would not listen to excuses. He reminded her that if she failed, her neck would end up on a separate boat, floating far from her body. At this time, the knight brought news of a message from the Archduchess. Her letter could contain important information, and the emperor expected more from it than empty words. The knight briefly explained that the Archduchess had expressed a desire to hold a welcoming ceremony, which hinted at the prince's special importance to the court. The knight then advised increasing the number of guards for the prince's safety, realizing that the situation required additional precautions. However, the emperor assured him that his own abilities were more than sufficient to deal with any threat, considering additional measures unnecessary. Millard, however, pointed out that the prince was now officially representing the empire, meaning his safety must be taken more seriously. This idea raised concerns among those close to him. Although the emperor understood her arguments, he still could not get rid of his anxiety. Liffey, observing this situation, believed that Millard was really showing his best side. Preparations for the welcoming ceremony had completely changed the routine at the palace. The servants, including Sir Millard himself, were literally beside themselves with work. When the prince had expressed displeasure the day before, Liffey, with her usual caring nature, had quickly found a way to calm him down. She had gently asked the knight to concentrate on his duties. In adulthood, Persilian was recognized as the best wizard in the empire. However, even then he had to fight for his place in the sun, despite the hostility of the nobility. Now he was just a 4-year-old child who had yet to awaken magic. This fact made him especially vulnerable in a world full of intrigue and danger. The situation required constant protection of the prince. Additional security was inevitable, but it was difficult to trust people to the emperor, which made the choice difficult. The emperor clearly preferred to keep his distance from people. Even in matters of security, he did not want anyone around for too long. Liffey tried to assure him that she would personally undertake to protect His Majesty. Her words sounded sincere, although her anxiety did not escape the attention of those around her. The emperor did not argue, stating that he was capable of finding suitable knights on his own. His confidence made the lady feel confused, although she did not show it. Doubts tormented her soul. She wanted to help, but she understood that if something went wrong, all the responsibility would be placed on her. However, she managed to achieve the desired result. Although she knew that this document delegating powers to the prince would cause controversy, both the nobles and the common people disagreed with this decision. Many wondered how a child who grew up outside the palace could rule the empire. Before making a formal dissent, the noble council decided to unite. This would strengthen their position in the future dispute. The prince chose a limited circle of nobles to meet with since he simply would not have had the strength or time to meet with everyone. The Archduchess's decision to hold a welcoming ceremony was generally welcomed, as it enhanced her influence in the context of the events. The Archduchess even decided to organize a celebration in the capital, demonstrating her loyalty to the empire and her readiness to support the new heir. However, the true intentions of the ceremony were obvious. Instead of a sincere welcome to the prince, many simply wanted to use his position to take control, not only of him, but also of the management of state affairs. Thinking about it, Liffey realized that there was no point in delving into guesses. Now, her main task was to focus on preparing for the upcoming events, in particular, choosing a suitable outfit for the prince. The tailors discussed the color options with the prince. They suggested red, which emphasized his brightness, and blue, which added nobility. They unanimously believed that everything suited him without exception. For such an important event, a talented designer was invited to create the perfect outfit for the prince. This emphasized the seriousness of the young heir's first official ceremony. Understanding the importance of the moment, the craftsmen made every effort. They chose the most sought-after specialist who promised to make the best suit for the prince, capable of emphasizing his refined appearance. The designer assured that his appearance would be the highlight of any event. It was important for her not only to create a beautiful outfit, but also to take into account the prince's natural beauty, which made her task both challenging and exciting. People often asked the lady's opinion about the outfits, but she admitted that it was difficult to make a final choice. Her attention to detail underscored her affection for the prince and his status. As one of his guardians, she spent much time with him, a role she found comfortable in, as she saw it as an opportunity to guide the prince and protect him from palace intrigue. The prince, however, expressed dissatisfaction. He did not want to look cute, but the lady explained that cuteness was not a weakness, but his strongest weapon in the fight for survival. She put a cute little bow on him, which made everyone around him delighted. His appearance with fluffy hair, snow-white skin, and ruby eyes literally enchanted everyone. Looking at him, one could think that he was a real angel. Even the discontent that could be read on his face only added to his charm and made him even more attractive. The emperor, noticing this scene, became angry. He asked her if she considered him a toy and expressed dissatisfaction with the way his son was treated, as if he were a doll. Liffey seemed oblivious to his anger. She admired the prince's beauty, finding his comeliness and grace worthy of praise. To her, he was like a living doll, evoking tenderness. Her desire to dress up the prince was becoming almost uncontrollable. She could hardly restrain herself from offering a few more decorations, but she knew that she had to know her limits. The prince, tired of her enthusiastic comments, threatened to throw her out. However, Liffey firmly declared that she would stay until she found the perfect ribbon for his image. The emperor was skeptical of her words, noting that it clearly had nothing to do with her predictions. He looked at her with bewilderment. Liffey tried again to explain that his good looks could be an important asset. The prince, however, categorically rejected this idea, not understanding why it was necessary. Liffey insisted that being pretty evoked protective instincts in people, a trait that could have played a key role in his safety. Amidst the intrigues of the palace, she gave the example that even such powerful creatures as elephants consider humans cute and rarely attack unless they feel threatened. Thus, cuteness is not a weakness, but a defense mechanism. The prince, despite her arguments, saw no benefit in this. But Liffey reminded him that many now wanted to take possession of him in order to use his status to rule the empire. She added that his good looks could be the key to protecting the throne. Not only would it help him repel attacks from enemies, but it would also help him win sympathy, both within and outside the empire. The emperor lost his patience. His anger reached its limit, and he ordered Liffey to leave the room, immediately not wanting to listen to her explanations any longer. He did not understand her words, considering them absurd. In irritation, he demanded that she shut up and leave, leaving him no reason for further conversation. The emperor sarcastically remarked that her mouth was nothing but trouble. Liffey apologized, but insisted that she was telling the truth, even if it seemed strange. His bewilderment grew. He had no idea where she got these ideas from, and why she considered them important for their current situation. Liffey, seeing his lack of understanding, explained that she had graduated from the faculty of lithology, hoping that this would add to her authority. However, her words only confused the emperor more. It made her nervous. She saw something in his gaze that reminded her of an abandoned kitten, and it made her feel genuine pity. Liffey noticed the jewelry that had been brought for the prince. It looked surprisingly cute, emphasizing his status and special role in the empire. She asked who exactly had brought these decorations. One of the maids raised her hand sheepishly, accepting her praise. Liffey gestured approval, which confused the maid even more. There was an inexplicable connection between them that seemed significant to Liffey. The emperor could not stand it any longer and demanded that both women leave the room immediately. His irritation was so obvious that they hastened to carry out his order. A few days later, the long-awaited moment arrived, the ceremony that everyone was waiting for, except Persilian himself. It seemed to him that it was just a formality, but for those around him, the event was of great importance. The ceremony officially began, and everyone headed to the venue. The palace had been in perfect order for the last 10 days, as if it was preparing for the coronation of an emperor, and not for welcoming a young prince. The preparations were grandiose. The court servants thought out every detail with great care to make the event look flawless. This created the impression that the prince was already being considered as the new leader of the empire. Among the nobles who gathered for the ceremony were representatives of two opposing camps. Some wanted to weaken the influence of the imperial power, while others, on the contrary, considered it their task to strengthen it and support the dynasty. Despite the disagreements, everyone understood that a successful welcoming ceremony could be a tool for strengthening the emperor's authority. Therefore, even the family's opponents considered it necessary. One of the knights suggested that the prince use the event to find loyal allies among the guests, but Persilian immediately rejected the idea, seeing no benefit in it. Liffey wondered why he was doing this. She believed that improving relations with the nobles could help the prince strengthen his position in the empire. The emperor's distrust of the people became obvious. For Persilian, who was used to relying only on himself and his sister, the idea of collaborating with the nobles seemed pointless. As a child, he was forced to live in isolation. And later, his magical abilities allowed him to cope with any threats alone. But now without magic, it would be useful for him to find reliable allies. However, he claimed that it was pointless to trust adults, much less seek allies, among those who perceived him as a child. Such mistrust seemed justified to him. The prince reproachfully reminded Liffey that her job was to find cursed objects, not to try to pick up followers for him. Her interference irritated him. Liffey, however, explained that strengthening his position could greatly speed up the search and help protect him from those who would take advantage of his position. At this time, one of the men approached the prince, offering a small gift in honor of his first official appearance at the palace. The prince was surprised, as he did not consider this day to be special. He noted that gifts were usually given on birthdays or special occasions, but not at events like these. However, the man insisted that it was just a sign of respect. Persilian reminded that even a small gift creates certain obligations. The man, smiling, assured that he only wanted to express support and recognition of his high status. Liffey watched with interest, gauging the prince's reaction. Her thoughts returned to how his good looks and confident demeanor could be a powerful tool of influence. The guests admired his natural nobility. Many said that if the crown prince always behaved like this, the empire would prosper even more. Some recalled how Persilio became emperor at the age of 21, taking on enormous responsibility and earning a reputation as a tyrant. For them, he was a symbol of strength and determination. Finally, the Archduchess entered the hall to formally greet the prince. Her appearance attracted the attention of all those gathered. Since Persilian was still a child, the role of mentor and assistant was assigned to the Archduchess. This seemed a logical decision in the eyes of the courtiers. The woman apologized to the prince for not being able to properly express her respect earlier. Her words were full of sincerity and warmth. Persilian replied that he saw nothing wrong with it and that she should not worry about such trifles. His calm seemed almost adult. The Archduchess noticed that the boy had a heavy burden to bear. She understood how difficult it was for him to be without support, especially after his mother's sudden departure. Her words touched the prince's sensitive side. He had lost not only his mother, but also his father, who had left the palace, leaving him alone. These memories made him think. The Archduchess, noticing his sad state, expressed her willingness to help. She emphasized that if he had any difficulties, he could always turn to her for support. After all, they belonged to the same family. This is undeniable, because Deepki was the sister of the former emperor. Thus, Prince Perry is her direct relative. Moreover, if we consider their family connection, it turns out that the Archduchess is his grandmother. Realizing this, the prince smiled warmly and sincerely thanked his grandmother. However, he assured her that he was capable of dealing with his difficulties on his own. She was grateful that he had addressed her so kindly. The Archduchess added that if he still needed help, he could always count on her. The prince noticed that his grandmother was a reliable person, capable of supporting him in difficult moments. However, he was sure that her words were directed more at his father. She often said that, in order to survive in this world, a person must be able to cope with difficulties on his own, relying only on his own strength. The Archduchess reminded that being born into a noble family is a privilege that should not be missed. Such a family provides many opportunities, and one must know how to take advantage of them. She also warned him that if he did not become strong, life would be extremely difficult for him. Her words sounded harsh, and it made it difficult for the prince to breathe. In response to her admonitions, he promised that he would try his best. To this, she confidently said that she believed in him and his abilities. Persilian admitted that he felt slightly dizzy when he met the Archduchess. Her grandeur made a strong impression on him. Liffey, hearing this, advised him to look at her, but as soon as he looked, his head began to ache even more. She immediately understood what was going on and asked the maid to bring her some cool lemonade. She claimed that it was the best cure for a headache. Liffey explained that lemonade acted as a medicine and asked His Majesty to try it. She confidently offered this drink as a solution to the problem. Meanwhile, her attention was drawn to Sir Millard, who looked extremely upset. Liffey tried to understand what could have upset him so. The Emperor, noticing his condition, asked what had happened. The Sir told him that one of the escort knights had injured his leg after falling down the stairs. According to him, the knight could no longer accompany His Majesty, so he was sent back. However, the knight insisted that it was only a slight sprain of the ankle. He begged to be allowed to continue his duty. The Emperor noticed that the knight had changed his sword. During the day, he had another one which raised questions in the ruler. The man didn't understand what was being said since he was carrying the same sword. Liffey didn't notice anything strange either, since the weapons seemed identical. Despite his doubts, the Emperor agreed to his request, for which the knight immediately began to sincerely thank him. The Emperor ordered the knight to be quiet, but Liffey noticed a strange expression on his face, as if something was bothering him. The girl began to suspect that something serious had happened. At that moment, someone joyfully exclaimed, "Greeting His Highness." This was Viscount Gulmover. Life outside the palace must have been very difficult for him. He lost his mother at an early age, and then found himself in the palace, where even his own father abandoned him. The Viscount bitterly could not understand how the Emperor could be so heartless. He even suggested that Prince Perry call him his father if he did not object. Liffey was shocked by his words. She believed that he had dug his own hole by challenging both the Emperor and common sense in such a way. The girl could not understand how the Viscount dared to call the Emperor heartless and at the same time offer himself as a father. It seemed the height of insolence. Apparently, the Viscount was not from the capital, because his name was not familiar to her. Usually, such people remain unnoticed for the rest of their lives. Liffey could only hope that he would not be killed. The Viscount continued to say that his father had neglected him too, and that he understood the prince better than anyone else. The prince, tired of these speeches, resolutely declared that he had had enough, and that the Viscount must leave immediately. However, he continued his speeches. The Viscount spoke of the bad rumors about the Emperor, claiming that His Majesty was known as a heartless man who decided everything by force. He declared that he could become a strong support for the prince, one that even a tsunami could not destroy. His words sounded more and more bold. The Emperor, unable to bear it, rose abruptly, overcome with rage. He ordered the sword to be brought to him, which caused confusion among all those present. Liffey only hoped that the Viscount would not be hurt. The Emperor lifted the heavy sword with difficulty, causing the girl mixed feelings that she tried to contain. Despite his efforts, the Emperor barely managed to get the sword to the Viscount and threw it in front of him. Liffey did not understand how he intended to use this weapon. The prince shouted at the Viscount to take his sword and behead himself. Liffey could hardly believe he was serious. The proverb, "The apple doesn't fall far from the tree," was perfect for this situation. Everything pointed to the prince's anger being hereditary. The prince demanded to know how they dared insult his father in his presence. The Viscount insisted that he had not meant to offend anyone. The Emperor said that if he was not thinking about his words, it would be better if he kept quiet. His anger was obvious, and the tension was growing. Liffey realized that this could not go on and tried to intervene. She said that the day was too auspicious to be marred by bloodshed. The Emperor looked at what was happening with disbelief. He could not understand how the Viscount could allow himself such impudence, even if he had meant something else. Liffey noted that discussing the father's notoriety in front of his son was the height of impropriety. She added that this was no time for rudeness. She offered to be generous and forgive the Viscount. In return, she decided to offer him something else to change the situation. The emperor restrained himself and declared that the viscount's blood would not be shed that day. He generously pardoned him, which surprised everyone. However, he added a condition. Now the viscount must end each of his sentences with the words "woof woof," so that everyone would know that his words were nonsense. The emperor suggested that he try to do this. The viscount was completely confused, not knowing how to react to this. The prince asked if he understood what he had been told. If the viscount failed, he risked losing his head, which completely horrified him. Trying to avoid the worst, the viscount gratefully agreed and concluded his statement with the words, "Woof woof." This caused laughter among those present. The prince noticed that "woof woof" sounded too cute and suggested another option. Let the viscount say "oof oof," which looked even more ridiculous. He addressed everyone, asking them to report to him if the viscount did not follow the new rule. His words caused a quiet laugh in the hall. After this, the prince said that he wanted to go out for some fresh air, clearly needing a break from what was happening. Liffey asked if she should leave, but he categorically forbade it. He was worried that aristocrats would approach her in her absence. The girl thought that he wanted to protect her, but in fact, he did not trust her, fearing that she might say something unnecessary. Liffey assured the prince of her loyalty. However, he reminded her that before her stood the man who had once tried to kill her. She didn't object, realizing that if the aristocrats captured her and began to threaten her, she might tell everything she knew. Liffey overheard the guests discussing how the oof oof order was too harsh, confirming that the prince's character could not be hidden. Everything the prince did caused heated discussion among the nobility. Their opinion of him gradually began to change for the better. Liffey knew that the aristocrats were against the emperor, but she did not expect them to be so open in their conversations with the prince. The emperor, who once possessed great magical powers, now relied only on his loyal soldiers and had to deal with the nobility to stay on the throne. Liffey assumed that he was very tired, but the prince hinted that if she solved his problems, he would feel much better. Even if she couldn't lift the curse, she was sure that her ability to hide problems could be useful. The prince assured Liffey that she need not worry, but she noticed that he looked tired and even a little sleepy. His eyes were barely open, and his face was clearly displeased. Persilian, despite his adult mind, was in the body of a child, and this greatly affected his physical condition. His body quickly tired, which prevented him from staying in shape. Last time he even fell asleep, right while getting dressed. Liffey suggested that he should rest and go to bed. But the prince, despite his fatigue, insisted that he could not leave the ceremony early. He tried to remain steadfast, despite his physical exhaustion. Liffey assured him that everyone would understand that he was a child and needed to rest. The prince, who was beginning to nod off, admitted that she was right and that he really should rest a little. However, Liffey realized that she had made a mistake in suggesting that he rest. The prince accused her of treating him like a child, which greatly irritated him. His face became gloomy with displeasure. Liffey was surprised by his anger because he was barely able to stand on his feet and was almost falling asleep. Then she suggested that they go to the room together so that he could rest in peace and not subject himself to unnecessary stress. Liffey added that if he was having a hard time, he could lean on her. But the prince considered her words unnecessary and arrogant. He sharply replied that he did not need her help and could cope on his own. The girl, sincerely trying to help, was confronted by his sharp remark that even her look seemed arrogant. This hurt Liffey greatly, but she could not leave him in such a state, realizing that he needed support. Suddenly, the prince noticed something strange with the swords, and his loud cry echoed throughout the hall. In the blink of an eye, an explosion occurred, shaking the entire atmosphere. The blast wave covered everyone present, causing panic. The knights immediately began shouting for everyone to be careful, but Liffey grabbed the prince and covered him with her body. She risked her own safety, hoping that she could protect him. Perry, furious, shouted that Liffey was an idiot, and she realized that things could have ended badly. He said that she was crazy for trying to protect him when she could have gotten herself hurt. The prince continued to shout that Liffey was acting as if she didn't want to live anymore. He demanded that towels be brought to her immediately for treatment. His words were full of indignation and panic. Perry insisted that she endure the pain and not move, while Liffey complained that she was in great pain from her wounds. She could not contain her emotions, realizing the seriousness of the situation. Liffey was shocked that the prince was angry because she hadn't managed to dodge the explosion. She didn't understand why he was so irritated by her reaction to danger. One of the knights, in despair, said that the explosion was caused by a precious stone in the sword's hilt. This assumption seemed very likely, since this sword was at the center of the event. The knight who held the sword died instantly, without having time to react. It was the same knight who had twisted his ankle on the way here earlier, which could be the reason for its slow action. Perhaps someone was using mind control magic to control the knight. At that moment, the prince said they would deal with it later, when the situation became clearer. The explosion happened right next to the balcony, and it could have been an assassination attempt on the prince. Someone was clearly trying to destroy him, and it could not have gone without consequences. Liffey realized that this place where the welcoming ceremony was held was a potential target for many enemies. She knew that the prince was not welcomed by everyone, but she was surprised by how calmly the emperor reacted to the incident. It seemed that the emperor was used to this feeling of someone constantly trying to kill you. He was so unfazed that Liffey felt sad. This was an unusual person, which seemed strange to her. She thought that the emperor had in a sense taken her prisoner. In this situation she should have run, but for some reason she ran to him, deciding that he was the one who needed her support. The prince thought her actions were stupid, calling her an idiot. Liffey calmly replied that she knew he would survive in any case, despite all the dangers. The emperor didn't understand what she meant. Liffey explained that he wouldn't have died in the explosion, and if she had just run away, he would have come back and punished her. She was trying to show her rationality. Liffey thought that she would be less affected by the explosion if she stayed nearby, and this was her conscious decision. She was a calculating person, which greatly surprised the prince. Liffey thanked the emperor for taking care of her, and he thought it would be better if her mouth got hurt than if she continued to argue with him. The prince's welcoming party ended in chaos. The nobles were quickly interrogated, and the wounded were sent to the palace for treatment. The atmosphere was tense, as everyone tried to figure out who was behind the attack. The magicians from the magic tower examined the scene, but were unable to find the culprit. For safety reasons, it was decided to station soldiers in front of the palace to protect the prince. That night, the atmosphere in the palace was tense, and Liffey found herself in Persillion's room, where they discussed their next steps together. Liffey approached the emperor, offering to sleep next to him so that they could be prepared for any threat. The prince found her suggestion strange and told her outright that she had gone mad. However, Liffey explained that they had to be careful until they knew who was behind the explosion. She had to be there to pick him up and run away with him if necessary. The emperor remarked that she spoke of him as a child. Liffey replied that she spoke of him as a child because he was now in a child's body and his abilities were greatly limited. Outside, he would be guarded by a knight, and inside the room, she would be. Persilion agreed with her proposal, but noted that they had forgotten to ask his opinion on the matter. Liffey admitted that his opinion had not been taken into account. The prince became very angry and shouted at her to leave the room immediately. He threw a pillow at her, and Liffey took it as a sign of agreement. She knew his anger was stress-induced, but she decided to stay by her side anyway. Liffey reassured him that he shouldn't worry, she could run fast, and reminded him of how she had saved him a few hours ago using her speed. She was hurt, but she survived. The emperor was truly angrier than usual, and his anger only added to the tension of the situation. The prince promised that if she got hurt again, he would definitely heal her. He didn't want her to suffer, but her life should not endanger him. A little later, the emperor was informed that the mages had arrived. Someone immediately told them to quickly start treating Liffey. However, they were here to investigate who was responsible for the explosion. The prince, hearing this, shouted that the magicians should have been doing the healing first, not looking for the culprits. He couldn't understand why everyone was so worried about the investigation. The mages began to apologize to the prince. Liffey was not mortally wounded, but she needed attention, and soon 3 wizards began to treat her. The prince warned Liffey that if something like this happened again, she could die. His words were full of seriousness and anxiety. He could not allow her death. Liffey promised that she would try not to die, because she and Prince Peri were one. This was an important promise to her, which she gave him as a sign of devotion. Liffey knew that rumors had spread about her secret ability, and if the emperor was in danger, she would be the first to be taken away and then tortured. But she didn't really care about her life. Liffey wasn't worried about her life, because she was more worried about Persilian. She was ready to protect him at any cost. She could also count on the escort of Sir Millard, the prince's trusted man, who would be with her in any situation. Liffey was more worried about the prince they were trying to kill than about herself. Everything that was happening seemed too cruel and disturbing to her, for Persilian attempts on his life were commonplace. Liffey felt sad, realizing how accustomed the prince was to such attacks. Liffey said she would sleep next to him, holding his hand, so she would be ready for any action. She promised she would not inconvenience him. The prince believed that she was there to protect him, but he was also sure that he would eventually wake her up if necessary. Liffey replied that if he felt threatened, he could simply squeeze her hand, and she would wake up instantly. She was confident in her reaction to danger. The emperor was surprised, asking how she knew he was such a light sleeper. Liffey replied that she had read about it in a book and had noticed his habits. Persilian was indeed a very light sleeper. Liffey thought it was due to the constant attempts on his life, and she realized this by observing his behavior. He asked her why she had brought the book with her. Liffey replied that her only purpose was to be there and prepared for any changes in the situation. Liffey said she would sleep next to the bed so she could hold his hand. She hoped it would bring at least a little relief. She turned off the light and was about to go to bed, but the prince stopped her. He told her to go to bed with him, since the bed was big anyway. Liffey said she was a woman of good principles, but the prince insisted that if she didn't stop talking nonsense, she would be thrown out at once. She was surprised that her proposal had caused such a reaction. Persilian had always been cautious, and she understood that. He suggested that she join him on the bed. Liffey, of course, agreed, realizing that they both needed protection. The prince said that if she continued to behave strangely, she would be banished on the spot. Liffey knew he was serious. Liffey was upset, but she decided not to argue. She had her own opinion, but she tried to understand his feelings. She extended her hand to him and asked him to take it. She was ready to be there, but the prince was determined. The emperor said that she had better remove her hand, because if there was danger, he would wake her. He did not want her to risk her safety. Liffey was very upset, but she still decided to reach out to him. Her desire to support him was stronger. He told her to take her hand away, because he wasn't going to hold it. Liffey felt her feelings cool at his words. Liffey said that if there was danger, he could easily wake her. She hoped that this way he would not feel lonely. Persilian again demanded that she not speak to him, as if he were a child. He was not pleased with her concern, but he understood her intentions. Liffey replied that she was well aware of his weaknesses and was ready to support him if he felt the need for help. She was sure that she could be there when he needed it. The emperor, asking who would be next, waited for an answer. Liffey reported that Count Mazens had arrived with his daughter. She added that they were both already in the hall and ready to meet. The gentleman sternly told her not to laugh. Expressing his displeasure, he was extremely upset by her behavior and emphasized that such a manner was inappropriate in this context. Liffey couldn't understand how one could not laugh, because people often come to them with children who are barely 4 or 5 years old. and their behavior always causes surprise. A few hours ago, an aristocrat had been in his presence, who had come with his daughter Liffey, wondered why the child was here, and what was going on with this society. Liffey didn't understand what exactly the child was doing in such a place, and wondered if maybe she had misunderstood something, or if something unusual had happened. The gentleman said that as the prince might notice this girl was perfect for him, perhaps they would have a future, and become a couple who knows what time will bring. Liffey knew she shouldn't laugh at this, but it was hard not to. The man was talking about how the girl and the prince could make a wonderful couple. At the ceremony, the prince showed himself to be a smart and respected person, which left a positive impression on all the nobles. This caused them to have a common goal and desire for a certain result. And of course, all the nobles were thinking about the wedding. Many people came to him, and Liffey, unable to help herself, often laughed, watching what was happening around. There were several such encounters after that, and Liffey had a hard time holding back her laughter, which made each new event even more difficult for her, but she still managed to control herself. Count Massens had risen from a simple knight to a commander-in-chief in the past, and perhaps his experience could help in the current situation, although it was difficult to hope for that. The prince explained that the count was one of the archduchess's servants, and therefore he would not be able to help in their case. This put an end to further expectations and worries. The explosion at the ceremony remained unanswered, as no one could accurately identify the culprit. The knight who carried the explosives died right on the spot without having time to explain anything. The emperor's guard consisted of only 3 men, including Sir Millard and the knight who had blown himself up. This made it impossible to conduct a full search of the area at that moment. It seemed that this knight who was watching what was happening on the street was at an important meeting, and now the question remained as to who he could meet at such a moment. The main problem was the shortage of troops, and Sir Millard felt a great responsibility for security that day. This played an important role in the subsequent developments. So he began developing a strategy to create a full-fledged bodyguard who could guarantee safety in such important situations. To this end, he created a special test of physical strength, believing that a knight with good skills was trustworthy in matters of security. The count was due to arrive soon, and Liffey reported that there would be a 5-year-old girl in the room this time, which made her think again about what was going on. The emperor, hearing this, remarked that he was not interested, but Liffey reminded him that the importance of such meetings should not be underestimated. Time would tell what would happen next. The emperor could not understand how anyone could take a 5-year-old child seriously, considering it nothing more than madness. Liffey in turn reminded him that he himself was only 4 years old. The emperor shouted at her to be quiet, which made Liffey laugh again. Her laughter was due to his displeasure and the fact that she didn't immediately understand what he was trying to say. His diction was very bad, and when he again told her to be quiet, in an irritated tone, Liffey couldn't help but smile. He was upset by her behavior. He warned her that if she continued to laugh, she had better rest. Liffey said she was not tired at all, but he said the wound was not healing so quickly. Persilian repeated again that despite any magical means, the wound does not heal instantly, and magic cannot work miracles as many think. She should not rely on its miraculousness. Liffey, despite his words, felt safe knowing that he was secretly guarding her. It gave her confidence that everything would be all right. He told her to be quiet, and when someone knocked, Liffey allowed them in. It was a man and his daughter who came in to greet the prince. The man thanked them for coming all the way to come and expressed his appreciation for the attention they had shown him. The girl, seeing the prince, was very embarrassed, and Liffey immediately began to smile, trying to ease the atmosphere. It was quite touching and awkward at the same time. Liffey, seeing the girl's reaction, turned to the prince and smiling said that it seemed the girl had fallen in love with him. She noticed her shyness and embarrassment. The prince, showing no interest, said he was not interested. The count, noticing his daughter's reaction, added that they were very worried about her, but fortunately, the prince looked well. Suddenly, the girl hit the table and her face contorted in pain. Her father immediately asked if she was okay, trying to calm her down. The prince remained indifferent, and the girl became even more embarrassed by his lack of attention. This made her feel even more awkward. Daisy, despite her efforts, could not attract the attention of the prince. She tried in every way to show that she was trying, but her efforts did not bring results. The girl kept trying, despite the prince's lack of interest. She genuinely wanted him to notice her, even though it seemed impossible. Unlike the other little girls, Daisy was much calmer. The previous little miss was very strange, and her behavior was only a distraction. Despite all her efforts, Daisy could not win the prince's attention. He remained completely indifferent, and she felt more and more disappointed. Liffey, noticing her disappointment, suggested that the girl try to choose which cookie tasted better. She tried to encourage her so that she would not lose hope. Liffey replied that chocolate chip cookies tasted better because they were sweeter. This suggestion lifted her spirits, and the girl calmed down a little. The girl, still confused, turned to His Highness asking which cookie was best. Someone present told her to choose any, which only made her choice more difficult. The girl insisted that unless the prince told her exactly which cookie was better, she would refuse to eat it. She was stubborn and was not going to give in. Her father told her not to be capricious and to eat any cookie, but the girl continued to insist that she would not eat unless the prince said his opinion. The prince, realizing that she would not back down, agreed and told her to eat the chocolate. The girl immediately became happy and beamed with happiness. The girl tried the chocolate chip cookie and then took a piece for her father. He ignored her gesture, which hurt her even more. Annoyed, the girl threw a cookie at the prince. Liffey, reacting with lightning speed, caught it, thereby causing surprise among everyone present. Everyone was shocked that Liffey managed to catch the cookie. It was an amazing feat, and no one could understand how she managed to do it. Liffey noticed that this special skill was passed on to her by Daisy. She was grateful for such an ability that was useful at this moment. Liffey emphasized that this skill was passed on to her by Miss, and now she could use it to help in situations like this. When Liffey saw the prince's look, she knew she had better keep the cookie and give it to the prince, doing so with a look of disappointment on her face. The father turned to his daughter, sternly telling her not to do that again. He explained that such behavior was unacceptable and that decency had to be observed. He apologized to the prince for his daughter's behavior, explaining that she was still too young and did not understand all the consequences of her actions. The father suggested that the prince himself punish his daughter for her misdeed. The prince in turn noted that punishment was indeed necessary. The prince reminded that one should have thought about the consequences before bringing a small child to such an important place. It required a more serious approach. The second thing he noted was that the count had not considered the consequences and had brought a little girl to the meeting. He should have thought in advance what would be appropriate for such an event. So you have to take responsibility for all of this. But the man says he didn't want any of this. He asked not to be punished. As strange as it may seem, he wanted to be left alone, not tormented. It was his quiet but sincere wish. The boy agreed to the request, but on the condition that he would tell all the aristocrats not to bring their children to such meetings. This would help avoid additional inconveniences. He warned that if anyone dared to bring their child, the same thing would happen to them as to the cookies. It was a very serious warning that no one could ignore. The man quickly agreed and expressed gratitude for the leniency shown. He hurried away to fulfill his promise. The prince was so tired that he did not want any cookies or any other treats. He was completely exhausted by everything that had happened that day. The lady remarked that she liked chocolate cookies, which made the prince think he asked if it was normal for her to have such preferences. The girl replied that he actually didn't even yell at her, and that was quite surprising. It was unexpected for her, but she felt that maybe it was a good sign. There were a lot of girls around Persilian today, and it was Daisy who decided to throw the cookie first. However, there were other moments that attracted the attention of those around. He was not surprised by the attention the incident was getting, but he still remained calm and did not yell at the children. This surprised everyone, as most people would have expected different behavior. Perhaps he liked Miss Daisy, and that is why he decided to spare these children. He believed that it was wrong to have any feelings for children, but feelings could arise involuntarily. The girl couldn't understand why he took her joke so seriously. The guy noticed that she didn't realize what was happening yet, and this was probably due to her age. She probably grew up in a loving and caring environment where moments like this were normal. It was completely natural for her, and she couldn't understand why he was so concerned. He suggested that she heard the word, "Don't do that," much less often than she heard, "It's okay," which explained her unflappability in situations where others might have been worried. In the book, Persilian's childhood was not described in detail, only that it was mentioned to be similar to Cyril's childhood, which was a rather strange but interesting coincidence. Cyril's childhood was full of suffering. Her mother died early, and life in the Duke's family was cruel and unfair. These memories left a deep mark on her soul. Cyril was constantly on guard, subjected to many sufferings and hardships, but later she proved herself to be an outstanding swordsman, despite her difficult fate. Despite her painful and difficult childhood, she often recalled it, and that this childhood is not forgotten. It was an integral part of her development as a person. It all reminded her of the Emperor's childhood, and she felt that they had something in common. They had both experienced hell in their lives. When she heard him talk about his childhood, she felt a strange mixture of emotions. The feelings were hard to describe in words, but she knew something important had happened. This feeling could be described as sadness, but there was no word that could accurately convey the full weight of the experiences he had endured. She turned to the Emperor and said that he could do whatever he wanted. This was said with respect, so that he would feel free to do what he wanted. He could throw cookies or even something else, if that's what he decided. She didn't mind, although such frankness was a little strange for her. The Emperor, not without humor, asked if this meant that he could do whatever he wanted. His question was light and playful, which somewhat softened the situation. Perry began to smile more and more often, and she felt as if she was somehow responsible for his laughter. It made her happy, but at the same time, it made her slightly uneasy. She replied that yes, if that's what he wanted. Perry, smiling, noted that if she wanted to say baby, it would be better not to say it out loud. She hadn't meant anything like that, but now that he'd said it, she found it hard to figure out how to joke about children, especially when she wanted to tease the prince. She promised to continue looking for a way to break the curse, but so far she hadn't been able to find a solution. The curse was too well hidden, and it made her nervous. The girl said that she was continuing to search, but the spell was so hidden that nothing could be found yet. The Emperor insisted that she not waste time and continue searching. She didn't understand how he could let her go like that. After all, she didn't know who would catch the flying cookies if she left. That seemed important. The master asked her to be a little quieter. She remembered that she had forgotten about searching for the cursed object and decided to start searching with renewed vigor. Around the corner, she was met by the Count, who said that he had something important to pass on. This was unexpected, and she felt a little uneasy. She did not understand what the Count wanted to tell her, and asked again in surprise. It was something important, and she could not understand his motives. The Count explained that he had been in a hurry and had forgotten to give her the necessary documents. This explained his strange behavior. He asked her to hand over the documents to the prince. The lady thought that they might be important papers, perhaps documents concerning the empire. Opening the documents, she found that they were about knights. It seemed that the news of the prince recruiting knights had already spread throughout the palace. Most of the knights appeared to be aristocrats. The Count said he had once been second in command and could attest to the trustworthiness of these knights. In fact, it was a commission from Archduchess Dipka. He added that it was important to understand how significant this information was. The Count said this later, which surprised the lady. She did not expect such a turn of events, and asked again to make sure that she understood correctly. Archduchess Dipke sent the documents hoping that they would be useful to His Highness. It also showed her concern for Persilian. The lady felt that the Archduchess was truly worried about her little blood. She agreed with the Count's opinion, but was somewhat confused. It reminded her of how corruption had crept into the process of recruiting knights, and she wondered if it was worth handing these documents over to the Emperor. She began to wonder if these documents were part of some kind of trap. After all, she herself seemed suspicious, and her actions could be taken the wrong way. The Count went on to say that he had chosen the sapphire for her. After noticing her blue eyes at the ceremony, he thought the stone would look great on her. The lady realized that this could look like a bribe, but the Count hastened to explain that he did this to show the seriousness of his intentions and to pass the document through her. The Count assured her that the sapphire had no particular value. It was just a gesture, and she was the only person he could trust with this document. He did not expect her reputation to suffer, but the lady thought about the consequences if she was perceived as an intermediary in the transfer of a bribe. He added that he hoped for her honesty and would hand the document over to Her Majesty. The Count was sure that this was an important step and believed that the lady would do everything right. He expressed concern that no one should find out about the bribe, otherwise the reputation would suffer. This was an important point, and she had to be careful. The lady assured him that she would hand the document over to the Emperor and took the sapphire. She decided that this was the only right step in the current situation. She thought that fortunately, it was only a document, and it was easier for her to hand it over. But if it had been another thing, it would have been much more difficult for her to hold it in her hands. When she came to the prince, he met her with irritation, asking why she had come. It was an unexpected question, but she tried to answer calmly. The lady said that she had been given a bribe, and the prince was immediately surprised. He could not believe that she was not ashamed of this, because it was a serious breach of ethics. She explained that the aristocrat had asked her to hand over the document, and that it was the result of her work. In his eyes, it looked like further proof of her devotion. Perry was surprised that she was so open about accepting a bribe. He thought it should have been hidden, but she felt no guilt and made no attempt to hide the truth. Thanks to the document the Count had given her, she now had the bracelet. He hadn't said it outright, but it was clear that this was also part of the deal. She hoped that the prince would appreciate her honesty, and as a token of recognition, give her the bracelet as a reward. She believed that this would be fair. The prince asked her to stop chatting and told her not to dwell on it, but the girl could not help but remind him that the document had been handed over by the Archduchess. She added that this document would definitely help him. It was her confident statement, and she hoped that he would take her words seriously. He put the document in his desk and was surprised that she did not offer to destroy it. The lady was confused that he took this action so calmly. The prince explained that he saw no point in throwing away the document, since all these people were supporters of the Archduchess. He would have to talk to Millard so that they would not influence his decisions. These people were close to the Archduchess, and His Highness knew that they could not be allowed to influence the elections in the Empire. He had to monitor their actions. The Count was sure that if he said it was from the Archduchess, it would give the document additional significance. He hoped that this would inspire confidence, but he did not expect such a cold reception. This, in turn, gave him the opportunity to pass the bribe through her. He quickly realized that directly handing over the document would be strange, and decided to use her help. The lady felt that she had helped him, but she was still confused. She was not sure that she had done everything right, but she hoped that it would help. The prince said she should return the bracelet. However, he later added something that made her think maybe she should keep it, but she wasn't sure. It was not an easy decision. She knew that if word of the bribe spread, it could seriously damage her reputation, and she could not allow that to happen. If she really continues to accept such things, it could jeopardize her relationship with the prince. He said that if she does not return the bracelet, the consequences will be severe. She decided to return the bracelet immediately. It was the right decision, and she didn't want anyone to doubt her integrity. Those difficult days were spent thinking about the best course of action. She realized that if she had not told about the bribe, everything could have ended much worse. However, the prince did not even appreciate her efforts. This disappointed her, but she still could not allow herself to run away from him. She knew that if she did, she would be immediately followed. She couldn't afford to give up. She had to keep working no matter what the difficulties. The prince couldn't stay so strict and merciless forever. This can't go on, she thought, deciding that something had to change. She walked into the maid's room, where the girls looked at her in surprise. They were preparing to cook something for the prince and offered to help her. She decided that the best way to deal with the situation was to feed him tasty food like a naughty kitten. The imperial servants treated her favorably as a street fortune teller. They got used to this nickname, which aroused everyone's interest. No one can remain indifferent when they notice that someone has the ability to see the future. This caused the lady many questions, and one of them concerned the choice of a dish for the prince. She asked with interest what they were planning to serve this time. The maid replied that they had planned to start with simple cookies, but immediately expressed concern. His Highness had shown no interest in this delicacy at all lately. This created certain difficulties. Looking at Liffey, the maid noted that they had arrived at the palace together. In her opinion, this meant that Liffey could offer something suitable, since she probably knew His Highness's preferences. Liffey, a little nervously, nevertheless, shared her thoughts. She suggested that the prince's tastes were similar to his father's preferences. Therefore, perhaps it would be worth preparing something from the emperor's own favorites. Liffey also suggested finding out what the emperor himself was cooked in his childhood. The maid mentioned her aunt, who once served here, but unfortunately, she did not retain memories of such details. The maid recalled that after the awakening of magic, His Majesty spent all his time in the tower. In this isolation, according to her, he grew up, which left its mark on his habits. Persillion's magical abilities awakened at the age of 9. The maid was surprised to learn that he had never had tea with desserts before, which seemed unusual to her for a child. When she saw 4-year-old Persillion, his tiny frame seemed even smaller than she imagined. She assumed it was due to an unbalanced diet, although there could have been another reason. Perhaps he simply could not eat properly. However, the maid expressed her joy that His Highness was now in the palace. She hoped that their shared tastes would help them choose suitable desserts for him. Perhaps, with the return of their appetite, they would be able to please the prince. She was worried about His Majesty's condition, especially before his departure. The atmosphere was rather tense, and in order to understand the reason, she cautiously inquired what had happened. The maid hastened to assure that nothing special had happened. But despite her answer, the girl felt a certain reticence, which only increased her suspicions. Besides, Millard had hinted at something similar at the time. He mentioned that the behavior of aristocrats had changed recently, becoming somewhat strange and unpredictable. One possible reason for this could be Princess Cyril's departure from the Empire. Everyone wondered what mission required her departure, causing many conjectures. The maid tried to explain that none of this mattered, but suddenly something unexpected happened. The flower flew into the air, scattering like a smoke screen. The girl, not understanding what had happened, began to ask questions. But because of this cloud of torment, the maid exclaimed that she gave up and no longer tried to justify herself. Her words sounded with slight anxiety. She was worried about the prince, because at such a young age, he found himself in difficult circumstances that required special care and attention. She sincerely hoped that the lady would be able to do everything possible to feed His Highness. At such an age, proper nutrition plays a decisive role. The girl was aware of her responsibility as the main protector of His Highness. When she asked for more details, the maid honestly admitted that she did not know all the details. However, to avoid misunderstandings, the girl decided to agree to the task. She promised to look after His Highness and make sure that his diet was always complete and balanced. Later, she went to see the emperor, who, to her surprise, was completely immersed in work. This made her slightly worried about his health, but she decided not to interfere right away, but to choose the right moment to talk. Thinking of a way to get his attention, she cleared her throat, signaling that she had not come empty-handed. She brought food, noting to herself how unusually bright he looked, as if he were radiating an inner light. She explained that she had brought the finest dessert, prepared with special care. She mentioned that the chefs had taken into account all of His Majesty's preferences to achieve the perfect taste and texture. However, the emperor looked at her with incomprehension, as if trying to guess the reason why she decided to treat him. Then the girl admitted that she herself had a hand in preparing the dessert. For a moment, Persilian, whom everyone calls Prince Perry, doubted her sincerity and thought that the dessert might be poisoned. Her indignation at this suggestion was so strong that she barely kept from screaming. Seeing his distrustful expression, she firmly stated that she hadn't added anything extra to the dessert. Her honesty was obvious, but Perry was still in no hurry to relax. She explained that the entire palace was worried about his refusal of desserts. The servants were making great efforts to guess His Majesty's tastes and please him. However, the emperor himself considered this simply part of their duties. In his opinion, no one was genuinely worried, but simply tried to do their job as best as possible. Despite his words, the girl reminded him that the servants' attempts to please him were a manifestation of true feelings. Efforts taking into account all the little things were an indicator of love and respect. She noted that love is attention to detail. Even if he does not notice it, he is truly loved and everyone in the palace cares about him. She didn't understand why he was so sensitive to kindness and distrustful of any manifestations of warmth. This surprised her and made her slightly sad. Watching him turn away from the tray of delicious dessert, she was sure he was doing it reluctantly. His behavior was mysterious. She was reminded that if he continued to eat poorly, he might stop growing. To this, Perry, already tired of such remarks, categorically stated that he had already grown up. And he added that if she wanted to continue talking such nonsense, she could at least bring him papers for work so as not to waste time. She wondered if perhaps she should eat the dessert herself to save them the trouble of tasting it, but then their efforts would be wasted and the taste study would fail. However, unnoticed by her, he did try the dessert. She caught it only out of the corner of her eye and decided to turn around so that he wouldn't feel her gaze on him. The girl felt a strange satisfaction, as if she had managed to feed a wild cat that had not trusted anyone for a long time. He noted dryly that she brought the food rather quickly, as if noticing her efforts. The girl noticed that he tried the choux, an elegant choux pastry with a crispy shortbread crust. A slight smile lit up her face. She decided that she would definitely ask Sophia to make choux next time. It seemed to be the only dessert he liked. After some time, the girl remembered another story connected with the emperor. A few days ago, Persilian unexpectedly returned to her the bribe she had received from one of the courtiers. He stated that he could not allow a person to be near him who would accept such offerings. In addition to this, he wrote a letter in which he noted that he would consider the list of recommended people, but he was returning the bracelet. For her, it was both sad and offensive. She believed that the bracelet carried a special light of kindness and dreamed of being buried with it. Now she had to part with it. The girl thought about the consequences of such a categorical step of the emperor. Her thoughts were full of anxiety. After this incident, she began to wander around the palace more and more often, armed with a map. Her goal was to find the cursed object that could be the key to solving everything. It turned out that the palace was much larger than she imagined. Exploring every corner of the castle took a lot of time, and she realized that the search could drag on for several hours or even days. One day, while walking along the palace street, she saw something she had not expected. A strange man approached her and politely informed her that Viscount Helenols was inviting her to dinner. The girl was stunned by this news. The man explained that the Viscount wanted to introduce her to his son. To her, it sounded like a veiled marriage proposal. The man repeated with a smile that the Viscount was very eager to introduce her to his son. His persistence embarrassed her a little. After the incident with the bribe, she tried to avoid such offers and reluctantly agreed to meetings, especially on the palace grounds. However, it seemed that interest in her only increased. Now her assistant was visiting her more and more often, asking whether she had received the latest letter. Sometimes, even the nobles themselves came to see her personally. At one of the ceremonies, everyone noticed that Prince Perry remained unshakable, and his connection with her only increased interest in her. Many began to believe that since she accompanied the prince to the court, there was undoubtedly a close relationship between them. Some aristocrats decided that by gaining her trust, they could get closer to the prince. Now she was pursued not only by letters, but also by suspicions. Tired of the constant attention, the girl decided to openly tell Persilian everything. She hoped that he would be able to help her sort out the situation. Approaching the emperor, she said with some timidity that she seemed to have been proposed to. Persilian was so taken aback by her words that he asked again if he had heard correctly. The girl explained that she was talking specifically about a marriage proposal. For a moment she thought he was laughing. The prince covered his face with his hand, but the expression in his eyes betrayed his emotions. He said that it was indeed possible, because there were all sorts of rumors going around about her right now. The girl remembered that she had once laughed at him, and now it looked like a kind of revenge on his part. She wondered how long he had known about these rumors, but she did not dare ask him directly. After some thought, he said seriously that she should decline the offer. Moreover, she should inform him of any families that made such attempts. The girl was surprised by his words. The emperor asked if she really wanted to enter into a relationship with any of them. She indignantly exclaimed that of course not, and she was ready to do whatever he said. Looking at him, she realized that even in his child's body, he looked scary. She wondered how scary he was as an adult. The emperor had warned her that if she met someone in person, she should be careful and avoid talking about him. She thought a polite greeting would be enough. The lady swore that she would not say a word that was not necessary. She assured him that even if she found herself underwater, her mouth would remain tightly closed. The emperor seemed to have left the entire search to her, which made her feel a little sorry for herself. Liffey discussed the situation with Sir Millard. She noted that he was busy looking for a knight, and the emperor was busy with affairs of state. This explained their behavior, although it was still difficult for her. Persilian was very concerned about her safety, so he assigned her an escort. He insisted that she be accompanied by at least one person, because the situation could become dangerous. She believed that such incidents should not happen again, but she was still grateful for his concern. She understood that the palace was huge, and this only complicated her tasks. She hoped that she could find a way to break the curse. The knight suggested that she try using her powers as a fortune teller. The girl made every effort every day to help His Majesty return to his previous state. Liffey laughed as she saw Sir Millard, usually so cold, display a rare gentleness. The man noted that His Majesty obviously valued her, since he even provided her with a personal escort. She countered that it was just a precaution, since the Emperor was afraid of information leaks. She remembered that she had been receiving many offers lately. Millard asked her to avoid meeting with aristocrats, if possible, and promised that she would receive a reward for this. However, he warned that if anyone persistently wanted to approach her, he would be able to stop it unless the title was higher than a duke. The girl was shocked by his distrust. Suddenly, another man approached her. She noticed with irritation that her conversation with the knight had been interrupted. She didn't want to think that this was again connected with another proposal. However, Sir Millard immediately tensed up when he saw the young gentleman standing before them. He asked warily what brought him here. The man greeted Mrs. Liffey. She looked him over carefully and thought he looked very attractive. The stranger introduced himself as Castian von Haidar and admitted that he had long wanted to meet her, which is why he had come to the palace. The girl recognized him. She remembered that, in the novel, he was a minor character who skillfully courted the main character. But his image did not arouse her sympathy, because later he showed himself as an obsessed person. Then she even decided that she would never allow him to stay with the main character. Now standing in front of him, she was shocked at how the events of the novel had become reality. The girl greeted him politely, noting that it was a great honor for her to meet him in person. He was surprised that she knew his name and watched her reaction with interest. Liffey explained that she often sees people's energy, so he shouldn't be surprised by her knowledge. She then added that she was amazed to see his unusually glowing energy. He was glad to hear such words from the fortune teller, so he asked with interest if she could spare him some time for a conversation. He wanted to continue the conversation with her. The lady was somewhat surprised by how quickly the knight gave in, but it did not disconcert her. She was accustomed to various reactions, and his behavior did not cause her any particular concern. Meryl was known for her coolness and reserve, especially when dealing with Castian. She was always wondering how to properly behave around him in order to maintain distance and respect. The gentleman noticed that she had an expression on her face that told him she had something she wanted to tell him. He expected her to share her thoughts soon. But in reality, this is not the case. The lady felt that the future head of the family would be a kind and fair person, which would serve as the basis for the prosperity of his family in the future. The man smiled because her words were full of good predictions. He felt a little embarrassed, not knowing how to properly respond to such warm words. The lady noticed that he was literally glowing with joy and asked why he wanted to meet her. This became a curious moment for her. Recently, everyone was talking about her in the context of His Highness. He heard that she was the sole guardian of the emperor, and as a member of the ducal family, he simply could not help but meet her. The Haidar family had always been loyal to the imperial family, and he was worried about the recent unpleasant incident. He wanted to understand the situation, to see how it could affect their relationship. The man was sincerely worried about his mistress, so he decided to visit her personally. This was important because the Haidar family had been helping the emperor and his family for a long time. In addition, the Haidar family has always tried to remain inconspicuous. This could explain their desire to remain in the shadows, avoiding unnecessary attention. In any case, he was trying to win her favor, and she noticed that with the prince's arrival, the capital was really starting to buzz. She also realized that she had to work for His Majesty. She thanked him for his concern, noting that she was very pleased with his attention. The gentleman replied that he had nothing to thank her for, since it was his duty. He said that if she had any problems, she could safely turn to him. He was next to His Majesty in the tower, and he believed that he could help her in a difficult situation. He was sure that he could be useful to her son because he had spent many years in the tower. However, he could not fully fit into her life. So after a year, he switched to homeschooling. However, he often saw His Majesty. The two families of dukes were completely different, and this sometimes became the source of various misunderstandings. The Duchess of Regina's family was renowned for their swordsmanship, while the Haidar family was renowned for their magical abilities. This set them apart from each other. After the story about Castian, the lady noticed that he was a wizard. She wondered since when wizards began to have such outstanding physical characteristics, because usually they were more fragile. She couldn't figure out who this wizard was in front of her. Her expression showed that she was still in shock. She decided that she and His Majesty might have been childhood friends. It would have been an honor for her, but she soon realized that this was not the case, and the surprise did not leave her. In fact, he had tried to start a conversation with him, but he had always ignored him. Now it became clear that the emperor, even as a child, already considered himself the center of the universe. He thought that His Majesty was like that because he had been considered a genius since childhood. However, in reality, he was just an ordinary boy, and this was a lesson to him. Liffey began to insist that this was not so. She believed that his impressions were caused by the character of the gentleman, which was a real surprise to the Duke. The lady admitted in a trembling voice that the emperor simply loved solitude, and this was one of the reasons for his behavior. The man noted that she seemed to really know His Majesty well. He had heard rumors that the lady had already met with His Majesty. This only confirmed her closeness to the emperor and her importance in his life. The lady said that they had only seen each other a couple of times, and besides, she often heard stories from her mother. The girl doesn't know why, but she panicked because at one point, Castian's smile seemed fake to her. In general, every time he wanted to greet His Majesty, he ignored him. Maybe she's just confused that she was in the novel. Once he gave him a book, but he just looked at him and immediately left. Then he invited him to go to the library together, but he simply walked past him. The girl did not understand why he was talking about such a sad and humiliating past. He only talks about how he was ignored. His Majesty always wanted to be alone with himself. He did not want to approach anyone. He must have not wanted anyone to be near him. But he still found himself a beloved, and they even had a son. She had heard that people were very surprised by this fact beforehand. And of course, it was no wonder that people were interested in her. Since she is the sole guardian of the emperor's son, the young master seems to know a lot about Persilian's childhood. She asked him if he could tell her how tall the 14-year-old emperor was. The man was surprised and remarked that he seemed to be about her height. That was great. If he saw Prince Perry, he wouldn't recognize Persilion in him. Also, when he left the tower, he was already quite tall, and he thinks that now he is about his height. The girl was in complete shock, and he was surprised because she had seen His Majesty. The lady said that she was simply surprised that he had grown so quickly in a year. She couldn't imagine them being the same height. Liffey noticed that he had requested an audience with His Highness, so she suggested that he come into the palace now. Today, he came a little early on purpose, and he did it in order to meet her. It looks like his wish came true. Liffey almost fell for his pickup and thought he was a real master. He figured she must have her own things to do too, so that was enough for today. The Duke used magic to create a bouquet for her. The lady was simply delighted to see this. She immediately recognized that it was magic. The lady asked if he wanted to give them to her. The Duke confirmed this because he was thinking not only about His Highness. The gentleman also added that he would like everything to be well for her too. Liffey said it was a bit of a burden for her. She knows that moment when some handsome guy approaches her. Usually they talk about insurance investments and real estate. In other words, they're all scammers. Besides, in the novel, Castian is a minor character, and he's supposed to have feelings for Cyril. That's why Liffey doesn't understand at all why he's doing all this. The girl was surprised at first when she saw her reaction, so she thought she was too cold. Liffey noted that in fact if she received a gift above a certain amount, she could be imprisoned for at least 3 years or be fined tens of millions. After these words, the Duke laughed very loudly. He was positively shining, and it seemed that her eyes would benefit more from seeing handsome men than from doing some kind of exercise. Castian turned to the lady and noted that he did not want to exchange her gift, so he asks for forgiveness. With the help of magic, he turned this bouquet into 1 rose and handed it to the lady. He hoped that 1 flower hadn't broken any laws. She would be embarrassed if she didn't take it, so the lady said that everything would be fine. Castian said that he would then wait for their next meeting. This man is very unpredictable. Suddenly a knight approached her, and she was very scared. Liffey immediately began to justify herself, saying that it would be very rude of her to refuse 1 flower. She tried to keep her distance. If he wants, he can check this flower, but he won't be able to determine such things by eye. The emperor asked again if she had really met with Castian. The lady confirmed it. The prince did not understand at all why she did this. Liffey herself does not know, perhaps because of this, that she is his closest assistant. The prince also saw him. He just said hello and left, but he didn't say anything about their meeting, so he wonders what he wanted. From what she heard from Billion, she understood that the Haidar family did not have a special relationship with the Archduchess. The family had a friendly relationship with her, but they were not very close. They just helped the imperial family together. When Persilian ascended to the throne, the Haidar family did not object much. Besides, as far as she knew, they did not take part in noble society. In other words, this family maintains neutrality. Princip noted that it would be nice to have Haidar as an ally, but he doesn't know exactly what his position is now. Perhaps he just came to see who had taken the throne instead of the emperor. Of course, she would like to get closer to him. Liffey noted that it was time for bed and she would turn off the light. The gentleman did not mind. The girl also noted that Castian gave her a bouquet of flowers, a fact that interested the prince. But she exchanged the bouquet for one flower she was uncomfortable, so she gave the flower to Sir Millard. He did it with magic. It was very interesting to watch. The prince asked in horror if he really proposed to her too. When he saw that the girl was scared, she realized that probably not. But she didn't understand why he asked that. After all, she was sure that he knew about Castian's love for Cyril. Even in the novel, it was mentioned several times how the two of them met more than once. It was true that the children of the dukes had met, but it was hard to call this relationship love. Persilian said that it would be nice to have an ally like him, so she told him to try to get closer to the young master the next time they met. The prince thought that Liffey liked Castian. The girl remember the horrors asked what he was talking about. She answered quickly, so he was wrong. Castian is justifiably handsome, but why Persilian thought she was in love is unclear. But if she likes the appearance, it does not mean at all that she loves this person. Besides, she likes His Majesty. The emperor asked her why she liked him. The lady said that it was because he was cute. The emperor immediately ordered her out. Liffey said that when someone looks cute, it's the end, and there's no getting away from it. The prince said that he had never been kind to her, and the girl agreed that this was true. She just likes him. Well, the boy believed that no one in the world can treat someone well without a reason. Liffey believed that it worked the other way too. No one could hate without reason. Whether it was family or friends, he had no one, no family, no friends. He revealed his feelings only to Cyril, who also left, and she thinks he's upset about it. So the lady said that she actually had a prediction that told her to love him. She thought that such a reason would not suit him. He remained silent. Persilian remains silent and pretends to be asleep. But she knows that he does not really fall asleep until she falls asleep. She was glad, because at least he didn't call this answer nonsense. The ceremony lasted for about 10 days, and now Prince Perry became the official owner of the imperial palace. A guard was also organized to protect the imperial family. While everyone was getting their affairs in order, the girl realized that this was unrealistic. She couldn't find this damn thing, and she thought it was a much harder task than finding a needle in a haystack. I was wondering who could come up with something like this. It doesn't look like there could be any suspicious energy coming from here. Walking around the palace grounds, she realized only one thing. The main thing here was not to get lost. The palace is connected to the forest, so you have to be careful and not get lost. Because of this, the emperor became a child again. He could not use his magic, but he often tried to awaken it. Millard wasn't a wizard, and she could only use it in games. Liffey hadn't found anything yet. But if Persilian finds out about this, he will simply kill her silently. So she needs clues. At the moment, the most suspicious person is Archduchess Deepka. Her supporters are the wizards from the tower, and she has always strived to take the throne. Perhaps the wizard from the tower helped her cast the curse. In addition, she can visit the courtyard without any reason. She decided that she needed to know more about the Archduchess. Liffey informed His Highness that she was going to a tea party given by Countess Rowell. He did not understand why she was going there and asked what kind of flowers she had again. The lady said that she saw a prediction. Perhaps she could get some information there. She instantly realized and said that therefore she would be grateful if he would provide her with a knight so that he could follow her. The emperor noted that this was not even up for discussion. The girl said that a little extra caution would not hurt at all. He asked what time she would be back. Liffey promised to be back by 5 Roy, and he had to behave well and not cry. He said she could go right away, so she went. After the ceremony, many aristocrats began inviting her to visit. Among the aristocrats, with the exception of the families on the Archduchess's list, the most influential family was considered to be the family of Countess Raoul. The girl did not understand why she saw so many people, because the letter said that there would be about 5 people at the tea party. Moreover, she came without His Majesty. They all brought their children here because the prince forbade them to be brought to the palace. It's like some kind of children's cafe. The ladies thought that she should have come with His Highness. She didn't understand what kind of synchronicity this was, but they still thanked her for coming. She can't even imagine how surprised she was to see her answer this morning. Unexpectedly, many aristocrats also decided to come, so she was busy with additional preparations, so she asks for forgiveness. Liffey said it was nothing, and she was grateful for the invitation. She could leave her coat on, but the lady said she felt more comfortable that way. Since she became a fortune teller, she only wears long clothes, so she shows everyone that she is a fortune teller. The crystal ball did not suit her because it was too heavy. The countess agreed and said that they could then begin their tea party. Usually the most influential person sits in the middle of the table, and the fact that they seated her in the center shows that today she is the center of attention. One of the ladies remarked that she had not expected to see Miss Liffey here. They had wanted to talk to her for some time. When the lady woke up this morning, she decided that she had to attend today's tea party. She is very happy to be able to greet all these ladies today. Everyone was very pleased to hear such words from the fortune teller. The atmosphere is very good. We need to continue in the same spirit. It seems like everyone has calmed down a bit, which means she can ask them a question. Liffey apologized and said that she wanted to ask them about Master Castian. Everyone was immediately surprised. All she knows is that everyone thinks he's perfect, but they don't know much about the family because they rarely go out. But she could ask a question. Nothing special. She just wanted to ask why he only spent a year in the tower and came back. She heard that most wizards train in the tower for a long time. No one can answer this question because he was able to awaken all his magical abilities at about the age of 10. And since everyone in his family grows up as wizards from generation to generation, they have enough funds to train wizards. Castian studied at the tower to gain some experience, but he had already learned a lot at home, so he quickly lost interest in studying and left. The lady understood everything, and the lady also added that this happened at the time when the Archduchess became the elder of the tower. The Archduchess became an elder because she supported the tower a lot. This means that she has had a close relationship with the tower for a long time. Castian is about the same age as the emperor, and this means that when he entered the tower, Persilian was also 14 years old, and she heard that he lived there for more than 5 years. So the Archduchess also saw Persilian there, so she wonders why she did nothing to him when he was still a prince. She knew he would become the greatest wizard in the history of the empire, and that he would soon become a dangerous target that would be hard to topple from the throne, but she did nothing. It was interesting to see where His Majesty had gone, and the lady thought that this must be a sad topic of conversation for her. Liffey noted that he would most likely need some time before returning. They were shocked that he was not going to come, and did not understand how His Highness could cope with such a situation alone. Sophia also said something like that. In the kitchen, she said that she was very worried about him, because before his departure, the atmosphere was not very good. Come to think of it, it happened just before she arrived, so she is very curious about this situation that is troubling not only the servants, but also the nobles. Lately, rumors have been spreading about the extreme capital, and if things continue like this, the well of the capital may dry up. It hasn't rained for days. Everyone is very worried about it. Liffey jumped up from the table and was shocked because finally she understood what was being talked about. The well is drying up. That's why Cyril had to leave. She had a mission in the United Kingdom, and she left because of the drought in the empire. From the time Prince Persilian ascended the throne, heavy rains began to fall in the empire, but droughts remained a serious problem for the empire, which had well-developed trade and agriculture. Persilian used powerful magic on the palace grounds. I concentrated all my power there to prevent the empire's main well from drying up. But this problem could not be solved by magic alone. That is why the emperor's magical abilities were needed. Because of this, he wanted to leave the capital, but despite all efforts, the drought was not eliminated, and eventually the wells began to dry up, so the princess went to the United Kingdom to negotiate for water. It was at this important moment that Persilian suddenly became a child who could not use magic. It had been quite a while since she had entered Roman, so she had forgotten about it. The lady thought that something had happened to her, but the lady said that nothing had happened, and that she thought that His Highness would definitely return soon. She herself had not noticed how she had become lost in thought. She wanted to know if the drought would stop if he returned to his previous state. It was necessary to know whether the delivery of water from the kingdom would help, and whether people would stop calling the emperor a tyrant. She also wanted to know what would happen if Persilian himself was to blame for this drought. She has a request. The lady warmly welcomed all visitors to the cozy bakery called Dream. For Liffey, this place turned out to be unexpectedly impressive. After a pleasant tea party, Liffey decided to visit the best bakery in the capital. She hoped that they would be able to tell her which desserts were especially popular. As someone who often uses mental energy, Liffey found that eating sweets was extremely helpful in recharging her batteries. She decided that she couldn't just show up empty-handed and was going to bring something special. Her main goal was to please Persilian, now known as Prince Perry. Liffey believed that the sweet gift would not only lift his spirits, but also give him the strength he needed to fight the current drought. The woman behind the counter kindly offered Liffey the opportunity to browse the bakery's selection and choose something that suited her taste. However, Liffey was determined to buy almost everything that was there. The bakery workers were genuinely happy to hear this. Liffey, confident in her decision, assured them that she would pay for the entire purchase, which caused genuine delight among the staff. It was an unusual experience for Liffey to make such a lavish purchase. Since childhood, she had dreamed of feeling rich and free, a person who could afford such expenses. However, reality made its own adjustments. After arriving at the palace, she could no longer earn money with her gift of prediction. Her new status limited her usual opportunities. Despite this, she managed to save up some money. Liffey decided that for the sake of Persilian, she could afford to spend money. Moreover, during her entire time in the palace, she had hardly spent any money because everything she needed was provided. The women at the bakery were very grateful for such a large purchase and vied with each other to invite Liffey to come back. Meanwhile, Liffey was thinking about how best to present the dessert to Persilian in order to start an important conversation. The Archduchess met her, remarking that it was good that the girl had found her so quickly and on time. She emphasized how important it was that everything went without delays. Countess Rael said that she had to be here and asked the girl to give her a little time because she had an important request. The girl assured him that she needed to return to the palace because the prince was waiting for her. She jokingly added that he could be compared to an abandoned kitten missing her presence. The lady noted with a smile that perhaps the girl would have a chance to find a little time to talk despite her busy schedule. If the girl made a mistake again, the mistress couldn't even imagine what she would do to her. Her patience was at its limit, and the consequences could be serious. Liffey wondered if she would kill her when she was alone. These thoughts troubled her, especially given her growing anxiety about making a mistake. The Archduchess turned to the girl, noting that there were rumors that she had been very close to the prince's mother. It was an important remark, and it caught Liffey's attention. The lady continued that when the prince's mother died, the girl did not leave him and went with him to the palace. She wanted to find out if all this was true. Liffey admitted that this was true, to some extent. The Archduchess remarked that she had only arrived in the village 3 months ago and that her stay had been short after all. Liffey asked again, astonished by this revelation. The lady added that she had learned a few things about the girl, including her mysterious past. Liffey was known as a street fortune teller. She would appear in the village, predicting events, including the harvest, the reign of the emperor, and important aristocratic events. When her predictions came true, she became a real celebrity. People began to admire her talent, and her life changed dramatically. The countess noticed that the girl was close to the emperor's lover. However, the question arose as to why she was alone in the village, if her connection with the emperor was so significant. Liffey began to say that she had not always been alone. The archduchess called her by her full name and looked at her menacingly, waiting for an answer. She asked why Liffey acted as if she didn't remember anything, as if she had just climbed out of a well. Liffey didn't know what to say in response. Suddenly, Liffey screamed that she had indeed lost her memory, and that she had been attacked by bandits who had thrown her into a well. It was a strange explanation, but it sounded plausible. Liffey was surprised that the villagers hadn't told her anything about it. It seemed she had hurt her head badly, even then, which could explain her memory loss. She then met the prince's mother, and her memory began to return, but her mother's condition worsened. This led to her going to the palace with the prince. Eventually, they arrived at the palace, and the prince was not used to being away from her for so long, so Liffey felt she had to go back. The girl was happy to see the prince come. His presence was important and welcome, and she felt relieved by his appearance. The boy asked what his grandmother was doing there. The archduchess explained that she simply wanted to talk to Liffey and was not interested in anything else. Perry added that he remembered something about a request for a meeting. The woman stated that they had just met by chance, nothing more. Liffey said that as soon as the archduchess learned of her tea party with the countess, she immediately came to her and brought her here, forcing her to meet the prince. The boy said that this woman was his person, and if she wanted to meet her, she had to get his permission first. This was an important condition. Liffey noticed that as soon as the prince entered the bakery, the atmosphere changed significantly, and everything around became brighter. His presence filled the space with light. The prince invited her to go into the carriage, and once inside, she told him everything, hoping that her story sounded plausible and did not raise any doubts. She added that he cannot stay without her for long, as it greatly affects his emotional state. The boy got angry and didn't understand why she said that, because he, on the contrary, adored solitude. It was a strange reaction on his part. Liffey didn't know what else she could do in such a situation. Perry was puzzled why she hadn't thought before she told the archduchess something incomprehensible. Liffey explained that she had not planned to meet the archduchess, but had simply stopped by the bakery to buy dessert for the prince, and had bumped into her by chance. The prince let go of her hand and asked again, to which the lady replied that he was always in the palace. She thought that he might want something that was not on the palace menu. He said that he was not particularly fond of desserts, but the lady asked him to try it, at least for the sake of the cooks, to which he agreed. The prince also said that they should take that thing with the carriage so as not to forget it. He then turned to Liffey, reminding her that she had said she had bought him dessert, and added that if there was no shoe in it, she could have it all for herself. Liffey agreed, but still decided to ask why he came to the bakery. The prince replied that he had told her he would be back by 5, and Liffey should not forget that either. Liffey felt awkward, but he ordered her not to express her face, so brazenly indicating her displeasure. The next day they received an invitation from Duke Haidar for the prince and Liffey to a banquet in honor of Castian's birthday. The duke hoped that they would accept the invitation and be able to attend this important banquet for him. The emperor considered that there was no reason to refuse, and sent a letter agreeing to participate in the banquet. He also asked what dress Liffey wanted to wear, to which she replied that she would go in her usual outfit. He said again that she would say so, and therefore he had already prepared everything himself. Liffey was delighted with how beautifully her outfit was prepared, because her cape looked almost like a dress, and she felt like the daughter of an emperor. She remarked that she and the prince did indeed look alike in their outfits, to which Persilian agreed, confirming her observation. Everyone around them said that they seemed to be one. And given this, the appearance was suitable for such an important event as a banquet. Liffey was amazed that she had a matching outfit with the baby. The prince told her to behave properly, as any action she took could tarnish his reputation. The mansion they arrived at was no smaller than the palace, and perhaps the emperor should think about expanding it. Persilian noted that the mansion was built slightly lower than the palace, as they listened to his wishes, and the height of the building differs by only 2 centimeters. The previous emperor allowed the construction of this mansion with such a difference in height that it is immediately noticeable how carefully the details were paid attention to. The Duke was genuinely glad of their arrival, for this day was of special importance, and he was grateful that the prince and Liffey had come. He continued to express his gratitude, noting how glad he was to meet them again. Liffey was also pleased to meet him and thanked him for the invitation, expressing her gratitude. The party was held in the garden. Everything was dazzlingly beautiful. Liffey was surprised because the invitation did not mention such a place. The Duke thanked everyone for taking the time to come to his banquet, adding that this was his first banquet in a capital mansion. It was his first experience in organizing such an event, and he hoped that all the guests would be able to enjoy the evening. Liffey now understood why he was called the perfect man for his manners, and behavior spoke for him. The empire has been suffering from a drought lately, and recently, one of the wells on the outskirts of the capital has completely dried up. The haidar family had always tried to help the emperor find a solution, and so Castian used magic to show a possible solution to the problem. When Liffey heard the sound, she immediately knew that the prince had made it rain. The rain fell all over the forest, but not on them. This was surprising because the magic was directed over a huge area. The gentleman turned to His Highness and said that if the emperor wanted, he could always make it rain. Liffey was shocked because she realized that it was a great honor to hear from the prince that he needed her. The magic caused a real downpour, and all the guests felt hope looking at the miracle performed by Castian. Among the guests were entrepreneurs for whom the prince's magic became a real miracle salvation and an opportunity for new beginnings. The prince thanked everyone and said he would think about their requests. After he snapped his fingers, the rain stopped. Liffey knew that nature magic required a lot of mana energy, and she wondered how Castian was able to make it rain over such a large area. It was a great honor for all present, as they met Endetio von Haidar himself, the great hero. The gentleman was grateful for the emperor's visit and greeted him with gratitude. The prince was surprised to meet the Duke here at the banquet, and he explained that it was actually his son's birthday, and he could not miss the event. Duke Haidar had not left the mansion for several years due to illness, and Persilian remembered that he had met him only once at his coronation. The gentleman asked how the prince knew about the Duke's rare visits, and he replied that his father had told him this, as well as information from reports on banquets at the palace. The Duke realized that the prince was aware of his rare appearances and noted that there was no need to worry about it. Liffey began to feel cold, and the Duke remarked that it was not a good idea to keep people outside for so long, suggesting that they move to a warmer room. Castian invited everyone to go into the banquet hall, where musicians were already playing, desserts were being served, and children were running around everywhere. The Lord hoped that the emperor would also enjoy the banquet, just like the other guests. A special place was prepared for him, and Persilian was completely shocked by the level of preparation. The hall was beautifully decorated, and separate desserts were prepared for the children, which also showed care for every detail. The prince called Liffey to him and said that he could stay at the banquet for about half an hour, but they had to leave in an hour. Liffey decided that she would definitely help the prince and try to save him from unnecessary attention. The party continued. The lady had lost her protection in the form of the prince, and now numerous nobles approached her demanding answers from her. Everyone knew that Liffey could predict the future, and now they came to ask if they could open a business in the West. It reminded her of the recent tea party, when everyone was also waiting for predictions, hoping for success in their endeavors. Liffey was taken aback, but to hide her confusion, she said she felt sick and dizzy. She had developed excellent acting skills over the last 3 months. One of the ladies approached her and asked what had happened to her, thinking that she was not well. Liffey replied that she simply felt dizzy from the large number of people and the strong energy that surrounded her. The lady seemed to believe her words, and now Liffey could retreat to the balcony to rest a little. Her head continued to split, but then the Duke came over, asking if she was okay, to which Liffey replied that she just wanted a little break from the crowd. The Duke expressed his gratitude, noting that he had had important negotiations with several representatives, and he was glad that she was able to speak to him at such a time. Liffey thanked him, and they stood in silence for a while, enjoying the coolness. The Duke noticed that Liffey had become a little more withdrawn and asked what she wanted, adding that they could talk later. Liffey replied that she just needed time and was not yet used to this kind of life. The Duke expressed understanding and said that they could always talk in a more relaxed atmosphere if she wanted. He apologized to the lady because he did not want to force her. As a token of his apology, he offered her cold water, but the lady replied that if she started drinking, she would not stop. Liffey noticed that the music in the room had changed. It was a tune suitable for dancing, which immediately caught her attention because the atmosphere began to change. The lady noticed how the Duke extended his hand and invited her to be the first partner at the banquet. He asked if she would do him the honor, and this was an important moment for him. She did not understand what exactly he meant, and replied that she must remain close to His Majesty, believing that her presence next to him was more important. The Duke, not losing hope, explained that he was having a good time, and that she was his guest, who had come not only as a trustee, but also as a person important to the evening. The lady turned to the maid, noting that she had never danced. She asked what she should do now, and she was hardly confident in her abilities. The gentleman assured her that everything would be easy. He would simply lead her, and there was nothing difficult about the dance. The lady was worried about her simple dress and did not want it to affect his dignity. The girl still didn't know what to do because she was only comfortable with the cape, which she tied tightly, not daring to take it off so as not to feel vulnerable. The gentleman encouraged her by saying that today she was the brightest decoration of the evening. Therefore, there was no need to worry, because this dance, in his opinion, should end with consent. Castian noted that he would be very upset if she refused to dance again, because he valued her participation and was sure that this moment was important for their relationship. The girl decided to agree. The emperor added that it would be nice to establish relations with Haidar, which could help strengthen their mutual ties. She looked at the prince and could not understand why he was looking at her so strangely. There was something in his gaze that remained incomprehensible and disturbing to her. She knew that if she couldn't dance properly, it could damage His Majesty's reputation, which made her even more worried about the upcoming dance. She decided that she would try to dance as best she could, despite her fear. This moment reminded her of a picture where the main characters, overcoming difficulties, still find harmony. The main character worries that she can't dance, but she remembers how others danced, trying to imitate their movements. In the end, she succeeds, and the dance becomes more and more confident. The lovers look at each other. The wind blows gently, but even in such a beautiful moment, her body reminds of difficulties. As if she had climbed out of a well, she felt not quite at ease. The lady realized that she needed to practice dancing. She stepped on Castian's feet several times, and the thought of leaving the hall grew stronger. The Duke approached her, noticing that she was probably uncomfortable in the banquet hall. He offered her non-alcoholic champagne, specially prepared for her taste. The Duke also asked if he could go out into the fresh air with her. He repeated his previous question, showing attention and concern. The lady admitted that she really felt uncomfortable dancing in the center of the room. She was not used to being the center of attention, and this became a real challenge for her. Liffey noticed that the Duke was amused by her awkwardness in dancing. However, it was not mockery, but rather an expression of joy at the fact that she became his first partner. The Duke suggested that she might hate him for this dance, But he also added that he had long wanted to talk to her, and if they stood for too long she might catch a cold. Castian put his jacket on her, offering her a change of seat. He was concerned about her comfort and tried to make her stay at the ball more comfortable. The girl wasn't sure if this was normal behavior among nobles. She thought that such actions were a way to make new friends and strengthen relationships. Persilian realized that he needed to maintain good relations with the Haidar family. He could not afford to miss such an opportunity, understanding the importance of it for future alliances. However, she forgot about time. While she was dancing with Castian, more than half an hour had passed, and she realized that it was time for her to return to the emperor. As she was leaving, she accidentally bumped into the Duke. He expressed regret that it was time for her to leave, as he still hoped to continue the conversation. If he wants to say something, it is better for her to immediately feel that he is not quite sincere towards her. He was surprised and asked if she really felt this energy. Liffey noted that one could say that she's not particularly interested in the plot of a minor character's sudden obsession with an insignificant character. She's more concerned with the story, survival in the imperial palace, because her life is at stake. Besides, she knows what happened to Cyril, so she doesn't understand at all why he's acting like this. The gentleman noted that she was mistaken. Here, he always treats her with complete seriousness. He just pursues one goal. The lady asked what he was talking about, and the man said with a smile that his family had always been allies of the imperial family. They want His Highness to be able to contact their family at any time. Liffey approached His Highness and remarked that she was very sorry, but it was time for them to go. She was also shocked by how many desserts there were after being in the children's room. She was so interested in watching the little children playing, who would later leave their mark on the history of the empire as nobles. Basically, I was wondering why she came so late. The girl assured me that she wanted to come earlier, but the guy said she was lying because she was having fun dancing with Castian and forgot about him. Liffey asked him if he really thought she enjoyed the dance. She couldn't understand how he could say that. She also sincerely apologizes for being late, but there is no need to tell her that the emperor admitted that he was wrong when he told her that. The girl didn't understand why he immediately agreed with her. In any case, she was very carried away because of Castian. She couldn't leave the balcony. Soundproof magic works on the carriage. The emperor shouted that as soon as she saw Castian, she immediately began to laugh endlessly. This was partly true. Liffey screamed back that she had already told him that she liked him better, and she said the dog devoted to him only had eyes for him. Perry thought she was a fraud and said she would rip her head off. The girl remarked that it would only make her lose all her hair faster. Persilian noted that he was deliberately pulling out her hair to make it easier to get rid of her head. Liffey repeated that she had not planned to stand on the balcony with the Duke. She had not been able to dance properly, so she had run to the balcony, but he had followed her, and she did it for His Majesty. The emperor suddenly stopped and asked again. Liffey said he wanted to have allies in the Haidar family, so she went out to dance, even though she had never done so before. He can't even imagine how much she wanted to leave and not dance anymore. Perry asked why she took Castian's jacket. A servant knocked on their carriage door and said he had brought the cloak she had asked for, so the lady said they could give the jacket to Castian. She spoke so quickly, and it was a good thing the servant understood her when she asked for her cloak to be brought to her. The girl said that she had run off the balcony and had forgotten to return the jacket to the Duke, and she couldn't just throw it away. She was safe with him, and she preferred the cape that the master had given her. Liffey hoped he believed her. Now, the emperor turned away and said they were leaving. Liffey asked that His Highness not leave her again, because she did not want to dance again. It seemed that she was really having a hard time. 3 days later, the lady heard the servant say that the Duke raised his hand and it started to rain. And on such a huge area, even at night, it will be able to call the sun. Liffey thought that last one sounded like the apocalypse. After the banquet, in honor of Castian's birthday, everyone was like they were on the edge. Everyone was shocked by the news that Castian could solve the drought problem. But the emperor, on the contrary, had many more problems because there had been no rain for 4 months. Liffey asked if he really didn't want to ask the Haidar family for help. If they had set him some conditions, he would have agreed, but they say that they want to do it just like that. Liffey was surprised that the Duke wasn't doing this for the Empire's sake. Persilian pointed out that was the problem. But the girl did not understand why, after which, the Emperor noted that she spoke the same as the people. But he asked what about the prince, and how he helped in this situation. Besides this, rain won't save the empire. If it did, it would have done it long ago. Liffey noticed that the Duke was in heavy rain. This rain can last for a maximum of 30 minutes. Even with maximum use of magic, it can only capture part of the territory. The drought in the eastern part of the continent will not be helped by a 30-minute rain. The lady believed that if this rain was released in the most dangerous area, it would save. But this is not so. This spell requires a lot of mana. This spell can be used a maximum of twice a day, so he will be able to lower only a small part of the empire. But during this time, he can be called the savior of the empire from a long drought. After this, he will definitely become popular among the inhabitants of the empire and will be compared to Prince Perry. He can ask the Duke constantly. Because of this, Prince Perry will be in his debt. First, he needs to think everything over. She too should refrain from walking outside the palace for now. The Archduchess asked that His Highness travel throughout the empire to reassure the people. The Aristocratic Association asked for a meeting about the drought. The residents are not very worried about the drought. If the prince is in front of the residents, it will be much easier for them. For them, the principal is a new goal. The lady noted that he would also be able to personally see the condition of the well, and if he needed anything else, he could contact her. Also, His Highness can fully trust the Haidar family, since he has no other choice. This woman is just openly mocking the prince. It is completely unclear what he should do. A few days later, everyone was shocked that he did not give consent to the Duke. For fear of losing power, he had just come to her. But he had already shown his greed. They thought he would destroy this empire. The lady was shocked that they were saying such things. The maid confirmed this and noted that it was very sad. She would not want His Highness to suffer because of this. The prince said they had to go. Millard said he would arrange an escort. Liffey whispered to Sir whether His Majesty must go there. It is said that the imperial family has divine blood, so the prince's arrival alone will calm the people down to some extent. This legend has been passed down from generation to generation since the founding of the empire. The prince came to the well and saw for himself that it was dry. Liffey approached him. The lady, and in principle, heard strange sounds, and when they turned around, they saw that the knights were holding a man. The man shouted and asked why he had only come today, since his daughter had not been able to drink clean water for several days. They wanted to pour a bucket of something red on the prince, but she, the lady, covered it with herself. The guy didn't understand why she did it. Liffey realized it was just wine. She was afraid it was something dangerous. It was very good that Persilian did not get wet. The lady said that she was glad that he did not get wet, so the girl noted that it was very good that she did not make the cape that he gave her. She wanted to, but then she saw a vision and decided to keep it. The emperor asked why she was unable to protect this clothing with her predictions. The lady was very surprised, and he noted that it was his fault. He needed to talk to Duke Haidar as soon as possible. The girl thought that the most important thing was that he was okay. The emperor did nothing because he saw no point in defending himself, but she was one of them. The girl interrupted him and said that it was her fault too. She still couldn't find the cursed object. She fails to provide him with the help that he himself needs more. In exchange for this, she tries to help him in at least some way. The prince did not understand at all why she was doing this. Well, and then a knight approached them. He wanted to know what he should do with this reactionary. He believed that the emperor would say that he should be put in prison or executed. People who want to harm the imperial family are punished immediately. They can be executed on the spot. The emperor said no, and he would do so, that he had not heard anything, because all this discontent of the inhabitants was on his conscience. He didn't come here to show off his power. The girl was shocked, because he even wanted to behead the nobleman at the welcoming ceremony. Liffey is touched by the fact that Persilian has become a little kinder, but if he leaves it, it could cause even more chaos next time. Instead, he asked them to take a bottle of water from the carriage and promised that he would get water, but they would have to come in person to do so. The prince said that they can come to the palace tomorrow. This is a kind punishment from the prince. Everyone is very grateful to him. And the lady said that he had a very witty and kind punishment. She was so worried that this situation could cause a lot of trouble for him. He was getting so soft that he was about to turn to jelly. Persilian pointed out that she had told him there were other punishments besides beheading, but he couldn't leave it out entirely because they had harmed her. But the man asked if he was really going to solve the problem with a few buckets. He should know that even the central fountain of the capital has dried up. It has been 5 years since His Majesty took the throne. Since then, the drought has become worse and worse, but his number, looking at this, decided to escape. Liffey started screaming and lunged at the man, asking if it had really been 5 years. 5 years since the central fountain dried up. Miller didn't quite understand what was happening to her and noticed that she didn't understand what she was doing. So she asked her to get into the carriage. The girl said that it would rain, and she clearly remembers who sent the letter that Persilian sent to Princess Cyril. And then in the letter he wrote about the state of the empire. Liffey said that it would rain in the empire. She was so preoccupied with the problem of drought that she completely forgot about the letter. In the 5th year of Persilio's reign, a record amount of torrential rain fell on the empire. She turned to His Highness and said that in the 5th year of his reign, there would be very heavy rain. He doesn't understand how he can trust these words, but she assured him that she saw it in the prediction. There are 5 days left until that anniversary, and it looks like she wants him to wait and not ask the Duke for help just yet. He himself said that he does not want to ask for help because he will feel like a long time. The guy said that now is not the time to raise his self-esteem and asked what will happen if it does not rain. The book said that the emperor said that it was raining, but what if he set a voice so that Cyril would worry less? This is quite possible. The emperor said that if it did not rain and the Duke came to help, later the situation would get worse. Her words gave a lot of hope, but the consequences would be enormous. The lady asked him to believe her that there would be enough rain that day to fill the central fountain. He didn't understand why she was talking specifically about the central fountain. It was all because he wrote exactly that in this letter. Liffey announced that she intended to spend the entire day at the fountain, starting early in the morning. If the emperor did not go there, she would be ready to leave, and he might simply send her away. The emperor was stunned by her words, and the girl explained that the people of the empire were in great distress, and someone had to take responsibility for it. All the ladies, as well as the emperor himself, call her a fortune teller. She believed that responsibility for the future must be taken upon oneself if the prediction turns out to be false. The emperor asked her not to do this, but the girl noted that if the prediction did not come true, he would be able to say that the evil fortune teller had been deceived, and this would help him punish her. This thought surprised the emperor, and he did not know how to respond to it. He was struck by Liffey's confidence in her words and the offer she made. Liffey believed that the emperor might then secretly forgive her, as such steps are often taken in politics when one needs to hide one's kindness or weakness. She smiled and noted that she might not be able to avoid imprisonment, and even if she did, it would not help her achieve her goals, since the consequences would be inevitable. The girl believed that the emperor's curse would remain with him, but she still wanted to do something to help him, because his suffering touched her heart. The archduchess, addressing the emperor, expressed doubt in the words of the fortune teller, because even priests are skeptical about such statements, and it is difficult to believe in their truthfulness. She continued that the longer the emperor delayed action, the faster the continent dried up. No matter how close he was to the fortune teller, time was running out. The emperor could not rely on the words of an unfamiliar fortune teller deciding from the very beginning to take responsibility for everything that would happen in the future. The men in the room tried to explain that they had no intention of being influenced by the fortune teller. The emperor would do well to listen to the archduchess's opinion. The prince ordered the man to remove his hand, and he obediently complied, realizing that in the presence of the prince, one should not make inappropriate gestures. The emperor discussed the situation with Duke Haidar. If it did not rain, they would artificially make it rain on the 5th anniversary of his father's reign, so as not to disappoint the people. The aristocrats agreed with this plan and expressed their support, saying that they understood how important it was for the emperor that everything go smoothly. The archduchess, realizing the gravity of the situation, noted that even if it rained in one place, it would not be enough for the entire empire. The problem could not be solved locally. The emperor believed that the situation with Duke Haidar would be similar. After this, the archduchess suggested going to another place to help and then leaving. Liffey, realizing that everything depended on her actions, emphasized that a person who is confident in his winnings is often called a cheater in gambling. The emperor wondered if Liffey thought he was a fraud, but realized that she was simply pointing out the need for at least a small amount of doubt in any matter. Liffey said she had to leave at least 1% uncertainty in the forecasts. For that small percentage, she would be willing to take full responsibility. The 5th anniversary of the emperor's reign was a significant date in the 21st year of the empire, and all attention was focused on how the rain situation would develop. Everyone present watched the fortune teller attentively. As she declared that rain would definitely fall that day, she became the object of everyone's interest. Everyone was curious about what would happen if the rain didn't start. Liffey wondered what would happen next and knew she might just get taken away if she made a mistake. Despite all the dangers, the emperor chose the more risky path and bet everything on Liffey, entrusting his fate to her, despite the possibility of failure. If there was no rain, the consequences would be serious. The prince turned to Liffey and asked her what she thought about this, not knowing what to expect in the future. Liffey replied that nothing was known yet, so there was no need to worry, but there was a hidden anxiety in her words because the situation was so uncertain. The emperor did not understand why they came to the fountain at noon. Liffey explained that the nobles could not observe all day, so it was necessary to choose the right time. She added that it was just a coincidence, not a special sign. Perry, surprised, asked, again, not understanding how this related to her prognosis. Liffey explained that there was only a 5% chance of rain, and she considered midday the most logical time to check, although she had previously promised 99%. If it didn't rain, she suggested to the emperor that they quickly escape, and if necessary, send Sir Millard for her to solve the problem. At this moment the temple bell rang, announcing that midday had arrived, and all eyes turned to the fortune teller. Liffey asked the emperor if he could come to the fountain, but he admitted that he did not know how to use magic, leaving her in the dark. Liffey thought it would be nice to make a spectacle of the moment, and decided that the emperor should play his part in the show as intended. However, she soon noticed that the crowd began to shout that the earth was shaking, and everyone immediately froze in anticipation of events. But it soon became clear that it was not earth but water, and everyone realized that the source of the phenomenon was the fountain itself. Liffey didn't understand at all what had happened, that water had started to flow from the fountain. The nobles were also shocked, and after that it started to rain. Everyone began to praise His Majesty, the Prince. Liffey was shocked because these people did not believe in her predictions. Perry approached her and asked if she really saw this in the prediction. Liffey smiled and told him that it was raining. She also put her raincoat on him. On the 5th anniversary of the emperor's reign, it rained the heaviest rain in the history of the empire, which fell across the entire empire. This phenomenon was more like the disintegration of the empire, so people called this event a blessing. In addition, the prince was in the place where the first rain fell, and because of this, after the 5th anniversary, people began to trust the imperial family more. Things are really going well. Sir Millard remarked that it was all thanks to the lady. Liffey remarked that he was now more polite to her. The man thought that anyone who saw that scene with the rain, I would have behaved the same way. It was just unbelievable. The girl remembered asking him to find out what those strange sounds were when the water suddenly started pouring out of the fountain. They found out that the system had broken down. The system was not working due to drought, but after a large flow of water, the parts could not withstand it, and the regulator broke. There will be further investigation. It will be difficult to determine the cause. Liffey was in shock because there was no water, but suddenly there was a sharp flow of water, and it is interesting where it came from. Perhaps Persilian subconsciously summoned the water with magic, or some miracle happened in the main palace opposite the office. The lady was very glad because they met Mrs. Liffey again. The lady said that she had come here to report. This was indeed the case. She had put all the documents in order and brought them to His Majesty. After Persilian became a child, he himself handled almost all state affairs. Because of this, he did not know which of the servants he could trust. He did these things on his own, but his childish body was not ready for this, so he often dozed during the day, so he eventually ordered that an assistant be provided to him. And she came running at that very moment. This is Elaine von Spade, the youngest daughter of Marquis Spade, who graduated from the Imperial Academy with honors. As soon as she came of age, she took over the management of her family. As far as she knows, Persilian chose her as soon as he saw the list of candidates. In addition, Elaine is the only younger sister of Cyril's lover, who is the main male character in the novel, and she is also a character in the novel. She is a cold but sensitive person. At the same time, even though she was the protagonist's younger sister, she liked that she gave off the feeling of an older sister. The lady noted that at the very beginning, she thought that state affairs were handled by vassals, or Liffey, but she was very surprised that His Majesty was handling them personally. The lady said that he had said that he could not trust such important tasks to others. Elaine noted that His Highness's style of handling paperwork seemed to match that of His Majesty. Liffey said that His Highness learns quickly, and besides, you can't crush the gens with your finger. This is true. In fact, the blood of the imperial family is considered sacred, and sometimes there are people in the imperial family who receive divine blessings. Most often it concerns intelligence. Liffey didn't even know about such a thing. The girl said that it seemed that he had been blessed since birth. Liffey was a little worried about whether she could be trusted completely. She said that she still had to get the rest of the documents in order, so she would go now. Liffey came to the temperature and asked if there was any reason why he hired an assistant and the head of the Spade family. She is smart and does everything quickly. She is worried that she will begin to doubt the identity of the prince they spoke to her. Persilian asked what they had talked about. The girl told him about this conversation. So the emperor asked her what she had said. Liffey said that she had said that he was a quick learner and that God must have blessed him and that he had genes that could not be crushed with a finger and so on. Principal noted that she believed her words because in the Spade family, it is customary to trust others. The lady understood everything. For some reason, she herself began to speak, also tried blessing. It seems that she really trusts others, but she needs to be careful with the scammer who cheats on insurance, real estate, and so on. The emperor was embarrassed and noted that he, Cyril, had said the same thing. This family had trust in their blood. She said how wonderful it was that with such a trusting character, Elaine could become the head of the family, and that this was what made her different from them. Liffey was simply delighted, because this was not told in the novel. She would have liked to learn more from such dialogues. Liffey suggested that His Highness write to Cyril about this, and asked if they often corresponded with the lady. The gentleman said that it was not so. She wrote to him once, and asked him to send an answer to her letter. The lady asked what she wrote about. Perhaps she wanted to know more about Persilian's situation, and that he had a lover who bore him a child, which could ruin their relationship. The girl noted that he could say, because he was fine, and ask how she was doing. The emperor asked what to do, if not everything was fine. Liffey noted that if he did not want to lie, he could tell about what was happening in the empire. He can write about it raining. He agreed that would be appropriate. And he can talk about it raining, and there's no need to worry about it. Liffey made the prediction because she remembered the letter from the novel that Persilion wrote. And now he writes a letter again, with the same content. She hoped that nothing bad would happen. After all, they should do the same as it was in the book. Perry said that today, Duke Castian returned to the capital. He requested his audit for tomorrow. Perhaps she will be able to meet with him too. The girl remembered, because she also knew that today, he would return from the eastern continent. And then she noticed that His Highness looked somehow strange. He keeps talking. It must be just because of the rain. Then Sir Millard immediately ran up to them and asked what was going on. Liffey told the knight that he was on fire, so she asked for a towel. Liffey couldn't summon a priest or a wizard right now, so she decided to move him to the bedroom first. Now she understood why his face was so red. He hadn't even noticed that he was sick. He doesn't think about his safety at all. The fever doesn't seem to be going down. And he was sweating. This scared Mrs. Liffey. Then, after a huge flash of light, the master turned into a real emperor. Liffey didn't understand what a handsome man he was, and why the curse had suddenly disappeared. She needed to call Sir Millard urgently. The emperor turned to her and noticed that she was so strange, and did not understand at all why she was constantly doing this. The girl didn't know what he was talking about, but she needed to let go of his hand. But he held her hand and asked her not to go and do this. Liffey had no idea what was going on here, and sat there very confused. It had been 2 days since Persilion lost consciousness. That day, she thought the curse was gone. But when Sir Millard returned, Persilion had become small again. Maybe she wanted the curse to go away so badly that she was just imagining it, but it seemed very real. But fortunately, after this, the temperature quickly dropped, but it was decided that the prince needed to rest for a couple more days for the sake of his health. In fact, Sir Millard fell on his knees and begged Persilion to rest. At that moment, Sir looked unwell. Perhaps something similar had happened before. The lady hoped that it was tasty. Before he could say anything, she immediately informed him that she had prepared it. She didn't understand what kind of reaction it was, and said that in fact, it was Sophia who did it. But she did the final test. She was doing the job of a taster. Liffey thought there that it must be some aristocrat coming to say hello again. And she didn't understand how anyone could come to visit so early in the morning. So she said that she would deal with it herself. When she came out, she reported that His Highness was honestly on sick leave due to a cold, but he would recover soon. The Archduchess stood before her and asked how she dared to say such a thing to her. The girl was immediately frightened and surprised, and she also asked what had interested her and brought her here. She noticed that his Sochi had lost consciousness, and she had to come after that without fail. Liffey agreed, but she didn't think that such words were used when approaching a sick person. The Archduchess noticed that she was not very good at hiding her emotions. The girl herself did not know how to behave with the sick. The lady is here to report to His Highness. Liffey supposed it must be a report of this morning's meeting, where they had discussed the rainy day that Prince Perry had been unable to attend today. The Archduchess noted that the street fortune teller, Liffey, had this time managed to guess the day on which it would rain. And I really want to know what of all her words is true and what is a lie. Liffey was upset and shocked that she pretended to be worried about the prince, and also pretended that she came to give a report. The girl then whispered that she had actually come to threaten her, and did not understand how she was not ashamed. Then the Duke showed up. She was very ashamed, so she decided to pretend that nothing had happened so as not to ruin their relationship. The gentleman said that he would like to ask for an audience with His Highness, but he had only just heard the news of his illness. It was very good that the Duke pretended that nothing had happened, and she was surprised that no one told him about it. Immediately after arriving in the capital, he fell asleep, so he did not hear the latest news. Liffey thought it was amazing that such a perfect man as the Duke could sleep through all the news. He asked her to go for a walk, and she did not refuse. There are many beautiful flowers in the garden. He also saw beautiful flowers on the eastern continent and was very surprised when he saw them the next day after the rain. Liffey noted that he had done a great job of going there, but he could not agree. What of it that he himself really wanted to go there? He was so pleased that His Highness approached him with a request. But when he arrived and saw the rain at that moment, he was really happy. Suddenly, he saw the black clouds come down, and it started raining at that moment. He felt like it was a miracle. Liffey was afraid that the Duke might be offended because he had gone away in vain. In fact, she was worried that he would be offended because he had gone to the east in vain, and she was glad that this was not the case. The Duke remarked that, to tell the truth, he was upset that it had started to rain, but he was upset by the fact that it had not been put to use. Liffey began to say that everything was supposed to happen. On that day, a sudden prediction came to her. The Duke was surprised and asked if she was really worried about him now. She confirmed this, so the gentleman said that in that case, he had a favor to ask of her. He heard that there would soon be a festival in the capital's square, and it was decided to hold a festival in honor of the memory of that rainy day. So he wants to ask her to go there together. In fact, he has never been to a street festival and really wanted to go there with her. The lady was surprised when she heard about this and remarked that it was a very good idea. The gentleman was glad that she agreed, and Liffey interrupted him and said that he could go with His Highness. He would have time to recover by that time. The festival is just an excuse. In fact, he wants to meet Persilian. That's what the lady thought. When you go to such events as a child, they remain in your memory forever. She didn't understand why he was looking at me. Then that expression on his face, and the already familiar one, he looks like an abandoned kitten. She noted that he had said that he wanted to get closer to His Highness, and this would be a good opportunity for him. A sign near the fountain said that this was the place where Prince Perry stood. Persilian was the main man at this festival, but he chose to attend the festival in secret. The three of them changed into raincoats and acted as his escort. The lady offered him to leave his autograph, but the prince told her to be quiet. The Duke offered to lift him up so he could see better, but Liffey jumped forward and said that she had to do it. The man believed that he would be more reliable in this regard, but the girl believed that it would be better for her to do it instead of him. The prince had said that the two of them should not come near, so he relied on his Sir Millard. Liffey turned to His Highness and said that the fountain was full. He really looked happy. Persilian very rarely shows positive emotions, and from this little smile, you can tell that he is very happy. The lady noted that he had checked the well. Now it was time to enjoy the festival. She suggested eating something tasty. The lady bought some sweets and suggested that the Duke also treat himself. Liffey noticed that he seemed to like sweets, so she offered him some more. He's a grown man, so he doesn't understand why she decided that he likes sweets. Liffey said she just imagined it. Actually, it was in the book. There was a scene where Cyril gave him chocolate after finishing fencing practice. Castian had a belief that sweets were only for children, so he said he would not eat sweets. She said that there was nothing strange about it, and that he could also like sweets. It seemed that this was a kind of consolation from the princess, after which the Duke began to like the lady a little. Liffey told him to be honest about what he liked. There was nothing wrong with that. She also told the young master that they had come here with the Duke, but the prince did not understand what she was talking about. The lady asked if they came as an escort. That was indeed the case, but it seems that there are no gentlemen here except him. The Duke smiled and offered that he didn't see anyone either, and that was true. He was also very grateful for the treat. The ladies were absolutely delighted when they saw the very cute baby, but he immediately ran away. They chatted that he must be shy. Liffey thought that if they saw his face now, they would immediately change their minds. Besides, Sir Millard looked upon Persilian as his son. She supposed that the knight was very glad to have come here with the young master. It really was, so he himself did not understand it. He felt excited. His little brother had always wanted to go to a festival like this, Liffey was thrilled to learn that he had a little brother. Millard noticed that he was, and the girl noticed that he used the past tense. Sir said that he had not even turned 4 years old when he died. He was the same height as the young gentleman. He knows he shouldn't think about marriage when he looks at the young master, but sometimes he just can't. Now she understands why Millard had the reaction he did when Persilian passed out. It seems the Emperor knows about Brother Millard's death, so he agreed to rest, and it seems that this is also the reason why Sir is so protective of Persilian. The lady hopes that his brother has gone to a good place. The gentleman thinks it is true since she says so. He also noticed that she is getting dressed, that he is resting in Simeon's arms. Simeon is the state religion of the empire, and the history of the country's founding is also connected to this religion. The knight asked her to wait because he had something to tell the young gentleman about Simeon. She thought about how good their relationship was. She hoped that today would go well. Suddenly, a weekday, a bag was put on her head, and she was grabbed. Her friends didn't notice anything. After this, the girl was thrown into some alley, and the robber was shocked that she did not lose consciousness. Then she pretended to lose consciousness so that they wouldn't beat her anymore. Street fortune teller Liffey. But the girl said that he was mistaken, and she had already heard that they looked alike, but she had nothing to do with her. He shouted at her to tell him everything she knew about the identity of Prince Perry. She said that she would tell me everything. Now His Highness turned 4 years old. This year, he lives in the main palace of the Imperial Palace. He lives in the Emperor's room, wakes up at 7 in the morning, has breakfast at 8 lunch, a little afternoon, and dessert is served at about 2-3 o'clock in the afternoon. He has a huge variety of desserts, but his favorite dessert is choux. They didn't even see how cute he was at that moment. If they are interested in who she is, she will tell them everything. Now her name is Liffey. She started her career as a fortune teller, but for convenience, they began to call her by her abbreviated name. She had so many clients that she started creating her own personal order list. The man was screaming at her to just answer the question of where he was and give them all the information. She almost let it slip that His Majesty had dragged her into the palace, and she didn't understand why everyone was so interested in the Emperor. The man said he would kill her if she continued to talk nonsense. He thought it would be better to mend fences with the prince before the Emperor returned. They want to deal with the prince while the Emperor is not in the capital so that they can blackmail him later. The girl said that to begin with it was a complete misunderstanding, and she would not be able to contact His Highness in any way. The man said that she should not lie to him. They thought she wanted to die because she keeps talking this nonsense. She really won't be able to contact him. She can solve this problem with her predictive abilities. She believed that they knew about her abilities. It was she who predicted the date when it would rain. Hi, that's right. Now the main thing is to buy time until the Emperor arrives. She said that the prediction requires great concentration, so they should wait a little. 10 minutes later, everything was the same, and the lady did not understand why he was not there. He should have found her by now. The man asked if she was really trying to see the prediction, because she was doing it for too long. The lady said that she needed more concentration. It would take longer because His Highness was far away. The man noted that it seemed she had found the courage to simply stall for time and not answer them. But the girl shouted that she already saw. These people are now enjoying a cool evening outside in early autumn, and chocolate is coming. They asked if she was really serious about what she was saying. So they decided that she deserved to die, and the girl realized that she was going to die now. But then she noticed that she had thrown them off and was shocked that she had actually done it. They didn't understand how she could do this to them and said they would tie her hands. The girl decided that she would do it again then. But then her strength disappeared. Liffey didn't understand at all why she only succeeded once. Then Sir Millard called her. She was very happy when she saw him. The men said that if he came any closer, she would die. The Duke was also nearby and ordered them to take their hands off her. With the help of magic, he threw them away and took the lady by the hand, asking if she was okay. It felt like he had taken off for a second, and she trusted that it was Castian who had done it, and she already thought that she had done it again. His Highness also came with them. He looked worried and asked what was wrong with her, or rather wanted to know if she was hurt. Liffey said she was fine and not hurt at all. Millard noted that she had hurt her arm. The principal was shocked and asked when she had gotten hurt. He said they needed to heal her, so he suggested they leave quickly. She also decided to thank them for saving her, because she survived thanks to them. The Duke was shocked and asked again, but the principal urged them to leave as soon as possible. Then they bandaged her hand. First aid was given, but she needed treatment upon arrival at the palace. The lady was grateful to the knight for his help. She thought that because he was a knight, his bandaging skills were simply amazing. The lady noticed that the gentleman was still pale. He did not say a word. He must have been very scared. She said that basically he should avoid Shu. She was scared, so there was some information leakage. These people wanted her to know the location of His Majesty. She needed to extend the time of the prediction. She did not have an exit contract, so she suggested that he go on a journey for now. The Emperor did not understand at all how she could do something incomprehensible in such a situation. Liffey said that they put a sword right to her neck, and she did not understand what else she had to do. The prince believed that it was all because of him, because he constantly put her in danger. But the lady simply hugged him. The emperor began to ask what she was doing. Liffey said that she was actually scared, but she knew he would save her. She was his weakness, and she knew that he would come for her so that she could not tell them anything. Now the lady knew what children smelled like. Very nice. The emperor also hugged her, and the lady was very glad that everything worked out. The festival in the capital lasted for about 4 days, but everything ended without a hitch. After investigating her kidnapping, it was found that nobles were involved. But when the soldiers came to their mansion, they were all unconscious. In any case, it was impossible to talk to them. The criminal was an ordinary aristocrat, and it was also known that he hired mercenaries from a distant province. As soon as the knights learned of this, they immediately went to the mansion. But the whole family was found, passed out in the dining room. When everyone in the family woke up, they immediately grabbed the knights. They shouted that they were wrong, after which the family was sent to the palace prison. But all this time they were unconscious, and when they woke up, they said that they were very guilty. And after that, they lost consciousness again. Hai decided that if they were unconscious in the dining room, they are in the living room. This means that they saw the criminal in person. He also asked what was going on with the family's entourage. Millard said that there was nothing unusual. They were present at Castian's banquet, and nothing special. Perhaps someone was in cahoots with the Viscount. And when things didn't go according to plan, the criminal wanted to make sure the Viscount kept his mouth shut. However, it will be very difficult to establish the identity behind all this. It is a difficult task. They went to the temple. The girl was shocked because the emperor had not said a word during this time. The purpose of the visit is the baptism of the Peri. Baptism is an act of blessing the imperial family, and when a new member of the imperial family appears, he is taken to the temple to be baptized. After this, when it started to rain, people began to say that the prince had the power of Simeon, and soon he received a letter asking him to come for baptism. They wanted to bless the prince. However, while preparing for the trip, she felt that Persilian was not himself, so she decided to ask Sir Millard about it. The knight noted that there was no conflict, but he was baptized late at the age of 19. He received a blessing. It was after he returned from the tower to the imperial palace, but compared to others, he was baptized very late. Usually people are baptized at the age of 3 or 4. So was he really baptized only after he became an archmage? In fact, it will increase called the temple, an incompetent group of people. And she did not even expect that the emperor would try to solve the problem diplomatically. The lady asked who this child was. The woman said that he was a student priest, and that children from the provinces were admitted here every year. Liffey mentioned that they even have a full training course. She didn't know about that. There are temples in the provinces, but they say that the capitals is considered the best, and they say that in the capital there is a sanctuary that is protected by Simeon himself, so this place is considered more divine. The priests greeted the guests. They wished that all their problems would be heard and blessed by God. This religion has been considered the state religion for almost 1,000 years. Usually, the baptism of the imperial family is associated with a long and lavish ceremony, but the emperor refused all this and decided to be baptized quietly. The prince seemed to have accepted the fact of his arrival with humility, but they all knew who was the recipient of 999% of his anger. Even the library here is beautiful, and it seems that even the air here is much cleaner. The lady noted that they say that the temple is blessed by God and has very pure energy. From this day on, she must also go to this temple. Write me a rather simple matter. You need to first free your thoughts and pray, and after that receive a blessing from the high priest. The only problem is that the prayer must be recited for an hour. No one except Sir Millard could enter the room with the emperor because he needs to concentrate. She was very sorry that she couldn't go with him, and it seems that because of the prayer he didn't want to be baptized. There are books from one series on this shelf. I think all the information about the temple is here. Simeon is a god symbolizing fire. Originally, this continent was desolate deserts, although the territory was in contact with the sea. This happened because of the divine beast Simeon, who was called Sikar, and he had the form of a red dragon. The first emperor who was able to communicate with the beast became his friend and family. It is said that the emperor was able to receive Simeon's blessing because he took care of the divine beast that originally devastated the earth. This is how the legend appeared, that the imperial family was blessed by Simeon himself. She who was born in the 21st century finds it hard to believe. But people here must believe it. Without it, no one would recognize a 4-year-old child. If she were the prince, she would have left the empire long ago. Liffey noted that she had said that Simeon was close to fire, so she asked how priests interacted with water. The lady said that the whole point is balance, and strong priests can control water. There were even cases where priests could purify water. They also say that they can heal people, and she has also heard that some people believe that water can be summoned. Liffey was shocked. The lady said that if she liked the information about God so much, she could be baptized too. Liffey thought the lady was asking her to become a priest, but the woman told her that baptism would not make her a priest. She would simply receive the faith. The lady asked what it was. To become a priest, you need to pass an exam and undergo special training. And by the way, His Majesty's mother was a priest. Liffey was very surprised by this information. She thought that Persillion's mother died at an early age, and this is the first time she hears about her being a priest. She had read that a priest cannot marry. She is simply His Highness's guardian, and she needs to know from his grandmother to answer questions. She knows little. She was originally a priest, but was later removed from their list. His Majesty's mother angered the church because she met the emperor and became pregnant, so they forbade even calling her by name. After which everyone found out that the emperor had an inappropriate relationship with a priest. That explains it all. The reason why she and Persilion lived in a remote palace, and why he ate very little. It was all because the church was angry with her. The prince's christening was over. The lady said she would take them further. Liffey thought Persilion's mother had the same golden life as they. She doesn't know all the details, but she feels like something fishy is going on here. With her wish, she will be able to reach God. This letter is sent to the Szczecin sanctuary, and sometimes an answer may come. Thanks to these messages, the Empire was able to end the First Continental War. They must head east to meet the first rays of the sun on the continent. After that, the Emperor decided to end the Continental War. He thus took the eastern part of the continent by surprise, after which he won a victory, and it is said that this was the most fertile time for the Empire. The prince wondered if anyone else would see the letter. He was told that no one would, and that after the letter reached Szczecin, all the words in the letter would disappear, and then the paper itself. He took the matter surprisingly seriously. and hid the paper from her so that she would not see anything. She thought it was very sweet and decided that she would write too. She wrote that she wanted the wish of the person sitting next to her to come true. The girl thought that this letter was excellent. She asked the gentleman why he was looking at her letter, although he was not going to show his own. The emperor was outraged and said that he had not looked on purpose. He thought she wanted him to look, but that wasn't true. He asked for everything to go back. Liffey assumed he simply saw her wish. And so I decided to tell her my story, and she thought it was very sweet. The principal asked her to calm down. Only 2 could enter, so the lady asked the prince who he wanted to take with him. The center of this temple is considered sacred and can only be entered through one passage. The emperor said he would go with Liffey. The girl was very surprised. She felt like she was a Pokemon that was summoned, and she thought that it would go with the knight. She sold it because it meant he would feel more comfortable with her. There is a legend that says that the sacred pond reflects a person's true face. That is why it is also called a reservoir that reflects the truth. If they ask a question and water drips at that moment, it means that the answer to that question is yes. The girl is sick, which seems like he wants to test her prophetic abilities in this way. She thought that they had improved their relationship and did not understand why he was doing this to her. Behind these doors is the pool of truth. Liffey asked if she would come with them. The woman said yes, but she would need to show them more about how exactly they should ask questions. Liffey wanted to know if they could listen to the entire briefing in advance and go in just the 2 of them. If only she and the emperor had gone, she could have gathered them and said that the water, for example, had run out, but that wouldn't work with a priest. She needed to do something, and so he decided to say that what his being really wanted was to be alone. This was a crucial moment, and she wanted to say something that would make him feel comfortable. It's just that His Highness is still so small. They will be embarrassed. So the woman understood them and decided to let me go with them. She consulted with someone and came to say that she hoped they would spend this time comfortably. The emperor knew she would do it. The lady was surprised and asked if he had taken her on purpose so that she would ask that they go together. He confirmed this, so the lady immediately began to speak, that she immediately knew that he believed in her. Perry thought they wouldn't have been able to stand her anyway because she was too loud. That meant he believed her. She noted that in this pond, it seemed like you could actually see your own image. As far as His Highness knows, this is just a legend, but it is better to check once. The emperor decided that he was a fool, allowed this to be checked. The lady will come, that it seems there is his adult appearance. In principle, he thought that she was making fun of him, but she was offended that his face was saying something there. She also remembered how he took her hand. Then his face was the same as then, and she remembers it exactly. The prince asked what he looked like. The girl said that he was very handsome. The emperor believed that this was said about all people they saw for the first time. The lady tried to prove to him that it was true. Persilian asked her to forget and not understand why only she could see it. She thought it was probably because he didn't believe in God. 2 hours earlier, the lady was very happy because they showed who was boss here. When he touched the water, the lady was frightened. He asked what had happened to her there again. The girl said that the handsome one had disappeared somewhere. So the emperor came to ask why she was so happy. Come to think of it, she likes him better in his cute form. The gentleman told her to watch her mouth. He wanted to know if he would return to his previous appearance within a week, 2 weeks, a month, 2 months, or half a year. He got very angry and started kicking everything. The girl grabbed him. The boy said he was a fool to believe it. Liffey noted that she needed to wait a little longer for an answer. The emperor suggested that she try. The girl asked what questions she could ask. Even philosophers do not know what the meaning of life is. How can someone like her ask anything incomprehensible? But he still said that she should do it immediately, so the lady agreed. She asked if she could become the greatest fortune teller on the continent. She can still become rich because she can simply sell real estate. It seemed that it really didn't work. The emperor didn't understand how anyone could ask such a stupid question. Liffey wondered what if he was busy now and she wondered how God could answer the question in that case. There was no point in waiting for an answer in that case. At this, the prince laughed and said that it was time for them to go. The lady was not against it, and when he left, she asked if she could remove the curse of Persilian. She did that you would die because of this, that she could not remove the curse. Persilian is cute. Sometimes she gets scared when he threatens her. I wish he did it less often lately. She linked that he was very cute when he was little, and she thought that His Majesty was not as bad as the rumors said about him. There will still be no answers, but for her, it's not even bad. The curse will definitely be lifted. The emperor asked what she was doing there, and the lady said that she was already on her way. Perry asked why she was stuck there, and the lady just sighed and said that she heard something. The prince asked what it was, and was surprised because he had not heard anything. After which, the girl said that she was imagining nothing, that it just seemed that way. It must have been dew that had dripped into the pond. The news that Prince Perry had gone to the temple to be baptized spread very quickly. Everyone just said that he decided to get baptized quietly. He is very modest. The future of the empire will be bright. It began to be respected for the fact that he was not so rude, and of course for the reign. While he strengthened his title of prince, she was tested for courage. Here is the reason for this. Ghosts are walking around the yard. The genre of the book has changed to horror. The maid said that every night they hear screams, and they also say that near that palace you can sometimes see a burning silhouette. The maid was shocked that she knew nothing about this. All of His Majesty's brothers and sisters were dead. In this palace, Persilian burned all his brothers and sisters. As soon as the emperor ascended the throne, this place was abandoned. And after that, no one said anything about this palace. But recently everyone started hearing screams from there, and they say that there is a video of a man who was walking in the fire. Some ideal story for signs abandoned. Castle murdered imperial family. They say that after the arrival of His Majesty, the palace ghosts began to appear, one after another. Perhaps someone came up with this in order to get rid of the prince, and the rumors could harm him. The prince decided that the palace needed to be blown up. Liffey was in complete shock and couldn't understand how he had come to that conclusion. No one lives in this palace anyway, and after these rumors, no one will be against it. Liffey asked if he really wanted to confirm the rumors, he needed to refute them. Persilian thought it had to be blown up anyway, to find out how much they had for that. It seems he just found a good excuse to get rid of the palace. He decided that if he met ghosts there, then he would be able to kill them again. They were already dead anyway. The girl thought it was just some kind of nightmare. Finally, after thinking about it, it was decided that they would go and look around. And the emperor asked her why she had become so quiet. If she makes noise, she will be the first to be killed. The person who screams that he must get out of here is always the first to die. Millard thought she was cold, but the lady told him to ignore her and just cuddle up to him. He felt uncomfortable because of this. The lady asked him not to hurry, to increase, and to go with them. Liffey didn't understand why he suddenly did this, and how he could move so quickly with such short legs. This palace looks like a place in all horror movies. Sir told her to be calm. Then someone dies. Their existence is erased from this earth. Liffey agreed with this. It seemed he was talking about his mother now. She doesn't know what to answer to this, so she decided to remain silent. The gentleman asked if she felt any bad energy. Liffey noted that she felt some kind of dark energy. The knight said that it seemed that it was not a person. The emperor actually agreed with him that there really was something there. The girl was very scared. She saw that there was a fire in that direction and was very scared. Perry, well, that means the ghost exists. He ordered the knight to catch it. Liffey was very scared and did not understand at all how to catch a ghost. She asked his creature to wait because they must go there together. The knight jumped out from around the corner and asked who he was, but they saw just fire in front of them. Liffey was very frightened and told His Highness that she was very scared. She asked His Majesty to be more careful, but she fell because he threw her away from him. He walked straight into the fire, but she screamed at him not to. Perry told her to be calm. She had said that he had to be quiet to stay alive. She had agreed, but now there was fire behind him. Perry from the past. What's there? The knight was just horrified and asked what was wrong with his hand because he thought it was hot. Princesa said, absolutely not, but it had to be gotten rid of. Liffey said, if she wasn't hotter, she could stay. In this way, he will be able to get a new image of an angelic baby. But he repeated once again that he needs to be removed. Actually, he could be useful. The knight was shocked because it was hot for him. It seems that only His Majesty can touch fire. The girl immediately approached him and asked if his hand was okay. Liffey offered him water. She took it in case she had to pour holy water on a ghost. Liffey started to absorb the fire, so she became very scared and started screaming. After that, the fire rose into the air and began to fly against the wind, which was completely incomprehensible to them. Liffey wanted to know what was there. The prince said that the sacred tree of their empire grew there. Persilian thought that this was a bad sign. Therefore, it was necessary to return. In the end, the ghost story ended, and only one mystery remained. Victory for the prince, as expected of him. After the prince visited this place, the ghosts no longer appeared. Now the princes loved even more. To find out something about the fireball, the prince looked for all possible information about magic and literature. Liffey went to the palace's huge library to find some information as well. She asked what the sacred tree of the empire was. The lady said that it was a tree that had been growing in the palace since the founding of the empire. Legend has it that the tree was given to him by boxing himself, and the tree is always associated with religion. Liffey was shocked at how old it was. The books don't say much about the tree. The tree gives a transparent floor, and inside is a powerful magical stone. It is said that this fruit contains a panacea. The amount of fruit that grows varies each time, but the people consider the imperial family to be holy because they always manage to collect the most fruit. On average, it turns out to collect about 10 pieces. The lady was simply delighted and asked how many His Majesty usually collects. The woman said that the current emperor had not collected yet, another reason why people call him a tyrant. In fact, there is no difference between emperors and others. It's just what the people of the empire think. She also added that the tree's leaves also have healing properties, and nobles often hunt for these leaves. The lady began to ask if there were many of these leaves. The woman had never seen them. She thought so. Liffey asked why she suddenly became so serious. Usually, when a new emperor ascends to the throne, there is a tradition of giving these leaves to the nobles who support the government. However, His Majesty did not ascend to the throne in a completely traditional way. However, some nobles sided with him and asked him to give them leaves. But the emperor did not understand why he should bless them. He said so, after which he took the leaves, and left leaves are given not only to nobles. Once a year they are sent to each medical institution. For this custom, the nobles are singled out first because the leaves were given to them first and then to everyone else. And then only on the day of the empire's jubilee. A tyrant emperor who uses a healing potion to hide the blood on his hands. Someone then created a bad opinion of the emperor by spreading all sorts of rumors. Perry wondered how she knew that these rumors were spread by nobles. She speaks from the family of the Marquis, so she wonders who could have told her such a thing. The woman noted that not all nobles have the same opinion, and Cyril told her about it. Liffey noted that she thought that this was the woman who often helped the emperor. She confirmed this and noted that there was a time when her older brother and Cyril had been looking for information about this. Liffey thought they were just romantically involved, but they actually got along very well. The lady did not understand why the missus was crying. She asked if there was any jealousy. Cyril was close to His Majesty. The woman believed that it seemed like she had seen it in her prophecies. According to her older brother, it was a relationship in which there was simply no room for jealousy. But he did not tell her the details. The potential other half of the princess was not at all jealous, so she was interested in how close she was to the emperor. It's so cool. Even though the Marquise described the Duke as a gentle and kind person, she couldn't even imagine that this man was not jealous. The lady remembers him saying that it was a princess's job and she was always pleased with the fact that her brother loved such a wonderful man. Elaine also likes Cyril. Liffey was sure that the princess would return with good news. Elaine believed that she had seen a prophecy. Let it be a prediction that is backed by faith. 4 days later, the prince said that it was necessary to go to the magic tower. Liffey told him not to worry because the tower would let him in. If he went, his questions would reach the Grand Duke. The lady asked what would happen if he came and said that he wanted to learn magic. With such a body which has not yet opened up the ability to magic, he cannot do this. We will approach in the morning. What can he say that he is looking for traces of his father? The guy said that he would never say that, so the lady thought about it, what to do then. Miss was informed that the Duke was looking for her, and the lady was very surprised when she heard this. She realized that this was what she needed because he would have a magical passage into the tower. Liffey turned to His Highness and asked him to trust her. She was so glad to see him that she greeted him with a smile. The Duke was very surprised. He asked if she was talking about him. The lady raised that it was him. She had a place she wanted to go to with him. Castian was surprised that she was waiting for him. The lady remarked that she would never enter there without him. The gentleman came closer and asked what kind of place it was. Liffey said that it was a place full of dreams and hope, where at night you can see many stars, and during the day you can see many colorful lights there, and it is a magic tower. She seemed to have often seen this expression on the emperor's face. The girl remarked that she would be very grateful if he would go with her to this tower. Castian said that the doors will always be open for her. In fact, His Highness wants to go to the tower. It's just what the people of the empire think. The gentleman noted that, by the way, he had also been there recently, although perhaps he shouldn't show up there. But the girl did not understand why, and assumed that he stayed in the tower for a year, and then ran away here with the words that such a place was not suitable for him, and the tower undermined his pride. It seems he was hurt during the festival. He wanted to visit the nobles, who were involved in her kidnapping, but they were not home. The lady thought that this could be sorted out later, and that there was someone else behind it. He wondered who it could be, because he would also like to help. The girl said that when they went to Vic's house, the mansion was very clean, and there were no signs that someone had broken into it, and she thinks that the real culprit did something to them. The gentleman turned to the lady and said that she would never experience anything like this again, and that he would take a lot of soldiers and find the criminal. Therefore, he asked her not to worry, because the Haidar family will definitely sort this out. The girl did not understand why they had to hire an entire army of soldiers for this, and why is the prince looking at them like that? When he noticed that she was looking at him, he closed the curtains. She doesn't understand what's wrong with him, and she assumed he thought she couldn't handle the task. Liffey asked if he could help her. The gentleman would be glad to do so. In truth, His Highness really wants to get into the magic tower, and she will be very upset if she cannot fulfill his dream. The Duke said that he would not mind taking His Highness with him, so the girl was immediately very happy. She was so happy he has business tomorrow and will be free after that, so he thinks that suits her. Liffey suggested going the day after tomorrow. She couldn't understand why he was suddenly in such a bad mood. He said he would be ready to leave tomorrow. The Duke's smile seemed to turn bitter, and she hoped it wasn't because of her. She decided to change clothes, because this way no one would be able to recognize them. She would behave sullenly. The emperor asked if she really wanted to meet him like this, because she was smiling from ear to ear. It's really interesting to work undercover, and besides, they're wearing matching clothes again. Today's concept is that she is Castian's assistant, who has a younger brother who wanted to be left alone, so they all came together. The emperor was surprised that she liked something like that so much. The girl said that she was wondering how about dressing in pairs more often. The emperor decided to fade away from this topic. The Duke greeted the emperor, or rather, the prince and lady. Liffey noticed that he looked unwell and more precisely very tired. He was simply getting ready for the trip. The lady and His Highness had trusted him to guide them to the tower, and he had to prepare for it perfectly. Even though he smiles, she still feels this tiredness, so it's interesting what exactly he was preparing for. The prince was very grateful for this, but the duke said that it was an honor for him. To get into the tower, they must pass through the gate. Liffey was absolutely thrilled when she saw the gate. "It's so close to me, it's just incredible." The duke held her close and asked her to be careful, because they had to be careful when crossing the gate. All of this that they can be sucked into space. That's why he did it. Liffey said she understood. The emperor didn't really want to watch it. When Liffey noticed this, he immediately turned away. She wondered what had happened to him again. He did the same thing last time. Maybe she did something wrong. Liffey was absolutely delighted when she saw this tower. She asked if it was really her. The duke said that here she could learn magic, and then she would have a choice. You can stay in the tower, or leave it to continue improving. But the basic course of study is about 8 years. She was shocked because after such a long training, someone still stays and continues to study in the tower. It reminds her of something. And then all you can hear here is the smell of coffee, dark circles that reach all the way to the chin. And this killed an exhausted look. It's like being a student. Liffey knows that feeling all too well. They were greeted. It was a great honor for them to meet the duke. She sorted out all the documents, all the lists. When she wanted to tell him about the amount he asked her to wait, he himself said, or these, that he needed to check something, so he asked her to wait for him. Perhaps the mages don't like the fact that they have arrived and can watch them. Perhaps it would be better to look around here at this time. It is very beautiful here, but the prince told her to stand still. The girl wanted to know if they all really fly on a broomstick and catch a ball.